Yeah, I was planning my thesis and what my goal with my what the goal with my thesis is, and then like I would like to get your
Okay.
feedback. I have like
Sure.
a couple of topics, but it's not like a specific questions. Um, the topic of my thesis is the goal of my thesis. I'm trying to do a predictive model on the success of startups, and there is previous studies that they do that, and what I want to do different, and that's my goal with the interviews. It's like to get some advice on
Sure.
what should I look into. Is that all those predictive models they use the databases like the one we have like from Dealroom or Crunchbase, and so those studies are limited in that data.
Sure.
So what I want to do is I will later collect information from the startups through questionnaires. So I'm going to ask them many different things. I have some ideas that I have got from the literature review of things that I would like to collect. So I will collect like the basic things like that other models already have, like industry or like founders, demographics,
Sure.
genders, these kind of things. And I would like to ask other things that are not in the databases. So, for example, if the founder has or that is not always on the databases, like if the founder has how many years of entrepreneurial experience or industry experience, or what is the motivation that they had to start a business, if they did a business model or these kind of things.
Yeah.
There are various questions. There could be many variables, and that's one of my goals. So one of my questions would be like, which do you believe are the most important factors for the success of a startup? And the second part of my study is how to define that success. So that is the other part. So those studies have many options. So some studies measure that success or the prediction based on survivability after
Sure.
3 years or
Yeah.
5 years or 10 years, or they measure success by achieving a goal like reaching a Series A or reaching an exit,
Sure.
or they measure it by the growth, by size of employees, or growth by employees, or funding.
Sure.
So I'm a little bit lost on what to choose.
Revenue generated, how many
Yeah.
countries they're going to, you know, develop to, and develop new business outside of their own home country is another important one as a success factor. And if you're only successful in your home country here, it's 18 million people, that's for most of the business
That's a small
proposition
market.
not enough.
Yeah.
But you got 500, 600 million people on your doorstep here in Western Europe. Very easily accessible, so it's very important that people develop the market. Well, one of the key things here for the Dutch startup ecosystem, if you compare it to the US, for instance, and it's not only true for the Dutch, but let's say the European system in general, is that in the US, startup entrepreneurs are much older than startup entrepreneurs in Europe.
And that's what I noticed when I was there. Yeah.
So there's an age difference of about 14 years. So the average startup entrepreneur in the U.S. is much higher. So here it's just a startup entrepreneur is almost synonymous with people that are coming out of university and they start their own business and from scratch. And they can do that because here in Europe there's all kind of governmental support, financial support to get you started. That's not true in the U.S. So in the U.S., there is no government to support you. You just have to go. You're just on your own. So the vast majority of startup entrepreneurs in the U.S. are people coming from a corporate environment. They have already earned their money. They have business experience. They have networks. So people work in a corporate environment, and sometimes a solo person or people as a group say, what we're doing as a corporation, we can do better, as a startup.
Yeah.
And so let's reinvent what we're doing as a corporation. Let's do it for our own. So they most of the time have their own capital to get started. They definitely have their business experience not to make all kind of stupid mistakes in terms of financially, in terms of team building and this stuff. What happens here a lot, not bringing the right partners together. And having network, they can call large corporations and coming from the corporate environment, have much more credibility to get somewhere inside of a big corporation to get started really quickly, and get access to money. So, because not only are the average age of entrepreneurs much higher than here, what they also do in the U.S. because of their network, the first thing you do is building a board of advisors from experienced people from the tech business that are going to be your shingle, where people said, oh, that person was executive vice president at Hewlett Packard. That one was coming from Oracle. Okay, so when you have that as a shingle, your funding and your business development goes much faster. So here you have the big challenges that the vast majority of people are much younger. They do not have business experience. They do not have their own money. They do not have big networks where they can just call their old buddies and say, guess what, I started a startup company.
Yeah.
Can I call you? So like in our situation in preventive healthcare, we could call people at Intel or ExxonMobil and said, well, guess what, Charlie? We started our own company. Can I come by? Otherwise, people said, you're what? You're a startup? How many people do you employ? Oh, 8? Oh, we have like 280,000 people here, so we don't know whether you're the right partner for us. So that gets you much better access to the corporate world, where you most of the time need to be to find your enterprise partners. Because if you want to build business as a startup, one little customer at a time, that you are, confined to when you're a very early stage startup in Europe, because you don't have your business experience, you don't have your money, you don't have your network. A lot of people come up with B2C models that you need to build one tiny little customer at a time.
Yeah,
well, that's
true.
usually that costs you millions to do. I mean, once in a blue moon, somebody like Facebook comes around.
Yeah.
But they had pretty early people in there who put some money into the organization. So one of the big challenges for young startups is that, they have that big disadvantage of not having the business experience that includes the financial experience, the managerial experiences, the team building experience. That's kind of something that you have to overcome. Which also means that they have less chances to get access to money, because there is plenty of money in the country. I mean, after all, in the Netherlands has the fourth largest pension reserves of the whole world. 96% of the pension reserves of the Netherlands are invested outside the Netherlands. We're trying to change that and to go back to these startups. And that ties in with what Startup Delta 4.0 or TechLeap .nl now is going to do, is really, help these companies, coach them, and to become more investor ready. And so that's a lot of work that you need to do. That in the US is not necessary because they have their own experience. Here we have to add it to them. So that's the key role that TechLeap.nl is now going to provide for. At least we start out with the 50 toppers, right? And top performers, and build from there. And because that's the biggest challenge here for startups, is getting access to funds, getting access to the market, and to become a scale-up, and from a scale-up become a growth company that has a substantial impact on the economy and creating jobs, etc. And has a chance to develop other markets. And so those are distinct differences between, for instance, the US model and the European model. Yes, on one hand, there is a chance to get started as a young company because there's a lot of government money, but the government money only gets you so far. The government is not, that's not smart money. That's just a subsidy. That here's money. What you need as a startup is smart money. People not only bring you money, but they bring you experience. People that come with a complementary business experience, financial experience, management experience, business development experience, because most of them are good about programming. Yeah. But it doesn't make you all of a sudden a marketing expert. There's only once in a blue moon you have somebody like Bill Gates who happens to be and a great programmer and great in a marketing guy and a great guy building a multi-billion-dollar company. That only happens every now and then. But most people don't have that. So you need to really come up with a lot of additional know-how and support to get them launched. So the very first steps, that's why you, for instance, see in the Netherlands and Europe, and especially in the Netherlands, we generate thousands of startups every year, right? And because with money from the government, money from the universities, you make these first steps, but then they get stuck. So as soon as they got out of an accelerator program like Startup Bootcamp or Rockstart, then you get stuck. Then there is not that next connection to the VC world or the bigger investors, but you're too early for them, and then they're all falling in the valley of death. And that's the big trick for an organization, Startup Delta, to avoid that all these wonderful startups that we're generating here, that they're not ending up wandering around in the valley of death, and the majority just die.
Yeah.
And so making that leap from being early stage to startup and being a growth company, that is one of the challenges that we have and that we're going to take on as a Startup Delta.
And what happened, like, when they go through those accelerator programs, they usually, or they get connected with investors on the accelerator programs?
Oh yeah, no, that's the whole idea of the accelerator programs is not only fine-tuning their business proposition, because I said a lot of people, young people, they don't come from the corporate environment. They don't come with a business proposition. They come with a solution in their own living environment.
Yeah.
Like, how can you find the coolest little restaurant to go with a date? I said, yeah, okay, sounds great, but how are you going to make money with it?
Yeah.
Unless you have 1 million users, your program doesn't make sense. And so in most cases, in the pre-selection program for the accelerators and the Startup Bootcamp, every quarter is another program, every location, Amsterdam or London or Barcelona, whatever. They have like 4 programs. People can apply around the world, and you get 700-800 applications. And they do the pre-selection, bring it down to 40. And then we're looking specifically at the quality of the team and the potential of the proposition. And that could be, in many cases, a B2C model. We said, but it is a B2C model that we can turn into a B2B2C model or a B2B model sometimes. And the thoughts are great, but forget about it. Just build your business just with a consumer focus. And you need to have strategic partners to get to critical mass. Otherwise, you'll be dead before you know it. And that's what you do in the accelerator program. The program is make sure that business proposition becomes scalable. That people become investor ready. By hooking them up with strategic partners. And so that's what you do in an accelerator program. Like here in Amsterdam, we have like 300 mentors. And if somebody comes in that organization with a program and said, there's something for the hospitality business or for the banking business or the insurance business, each of these mentors can pick up the phone and make these connections to say, hey, Charlie, at a big insurance company, I have now a very interesting startup, you need to talk with them. Instead of let these startups send their little PowerPoint to somebody and then never hear back. So we introduce them to people, and a lot of organizations are actually part of the program because a lot of these big corporations are interested in new innovative solutions. And so they're also part of the accelerator program to see what's in it for them. And but sometimes programs are not necessarily directly relevant for them, but they can help you. They help you along the way. So that's one of the things you do is fine-tuning the business proposition. In many cases, turning around a B2C model because people are not coming from the corporate environment. They just do something from their own, just from their own little world. Make it a B2C or a B2B2C or a B2B model out of, and find the right partners for it. And once you have the right partners, it's also easier if it becomes a scalable model to interest investors. So once they come out of an accelerator program, the whole idea is that they are investor ready, that the program has been fine-tuned in such a way that investors are ready to step in.
Okay.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be a VC. In the Netherlands, you have many organizations, governmental or semi-governmental agencies that have also monies for innovation that can bridge that situation before you get into an A round and a B round, whatever. So a lot of pre-seed seed money here, and innovation credits are actually coming from the government to bridge these gaps in that whole chain.
Okay.
Because that's another thing what you compare to the U.S. In the U.S. with that whole structure from private equity and venture capital, that's a business that is already in existing for 70, 80 years. And so there's a much more evolved situation, a mature situation that's much more integrated system. So even the largest investors, whether you're Kleiner Perkins or so, they will not look down their nose for somebody who's a tiny little startup if they think that you're going to be the next inventions in sliced bread. You can come to them, you can go to them and say, I think we have something that has a huge potential. And okay, they said, all right, well, come over, tell us what you have.
Yeah.
And then in most of the cases, okay, but you are obviously way too young for us to invest in. But all these big corporations are investing in hundreds and hundreds of funds. They have around themselves concentric circles of hundreds of thousands of contacts that for your company, wait here, I'm going to make a phone call for you right now, and I'm going to put you there because you're a pre-seat of a seat, and I know somebody who would really be interested in your company because they're investment focused with them. So, and then they kind of guide you through the whole process. So every step along the way from pre-seat to seat to A rounds, B rounds, and further to private equity deals and financing deals, they kind of manage that whole process.
Yeah.
So they create their own exits. They're not going to wait till somebody goes by and says, how about what we're going to exit with you guys? No, they create their own exits by making sure that they have that constant inflow of high potentials. And that's in Europe not so developed. So in Europe it's all very fragmented. So you do one step and then it's very hard to make the connection to the next step.
Okay, yeah.
One of the roles of Startup Delta is to make it more fluent and to make it more integrated and to help people through that process so that we don't have so many casualties from high potential startups that never make it to become scalable growth companies.
So Startup Delta wants to help those high potential startups would be like on early stages, like on pre-seed, seed, or?
Yeah, that could be. I mean, if this year we took again 50 companies to CES, and the top 3 of those, that at that point of time, it was not a specific task for Startup Delta, but in anticipation of this whole development with Startup Delta, I took them on, and the top 3 have already raised over 20 million euros in funding.
Okay.
There's a coaching program, taking them to the US, hooking them up with the right partners. One was named because we did all the matchmaking with the right companies. We did the media plan, and so that one of them was interviewed by Forbes magazine and was called one of the 10 most innovative, disruptive innovations of CES. Well, within a week we already had the first 7.5 million euros secured, and now we're talking about a round of 15 to 20, and within half a year.
Yeah.
So you can really have a early stage startup that has huge potential to grow very fast, and to pick them up and do that. That's exactly what happens in the US. It's way more money. People are much more risk-taking and not so risk-adverse as they are in Europe, and much more willing to take a very young company and put them in the overdrive. You can have a massive casualty too, but the success rate of growing from an early stage to a scale-up and a growth company is much higher there, just because of that integrated system of funding steps that follow each other to your whole stage of all the stages of growth of your company.
Okay, and if Startup Delta is going to choose, like you say 50 companies to help?
Well, we start out. That's one of the things we have right now is that we every year we need to have. And a pool, of course, you have some people that jump out of it because they arrive at where they need to be, and every year you have to refresh that pool of 50 top startups and to help them wherever you can with funding, with business contacts, with helping with team building, whatever you can to help them moving to the next stage.
Yeah.
And so the whole idea is that once that happens, once you have that system established, then it becomes a self-propelling system. Once you have had investors said, wow, I invested in one of these toppers of Startup Delta, and it was just like a massive success. Okay, Startup Delta, what next do you have on your agenda that will be of interest for us? So that they also become more interested to start looking to do more forward investment in the early stages of development.
Okay, so back to my main question. So what would the methodology to select those startups, those potential startups would be? When would you say that they achieved their goal? Like that point where the investor says like, wow, Startup Delta did a good job with those startups.
Well, in this situation is, what they achieved in the early stages of growth is, they will still bleeding a lot of money. They still are burning a lot of cash. But if they can, in those early stages, can secure the money to put their growth into the overdrive, with the idea that within 2 or 3 or 4 years you're going to be cash flow positive. For every company is going to be different. Some companies it may take 7 or 8 years before it becomes cash flow positive, because it requires huge investments. And so one of the things is just indeed securing the funding and to bring these companies to the full potential.
When do the startups usually achieve that cash flow positive state?
It depends on the type of business. I mean, if it's an e-commerce proposition, you can do that, for instance, in 1 or 2 years. But if it's something like, let's say, biotech that requires just huge investments, upfront investments, that can take many, many, many years. And that's okay, because also the rewards in the future are much higher than in e-commerce. And so like this year, to give you a few examples this year, one of us energy transition, and one of us using thermoacoustic know-how for air conditioning of buildings, using no power, but using rest heat of buildings. So that's a kind of a very innovative solution. And so we took it to, that was the one that was named one of the 10 most innovative at CES. Well, they had orders from the whole world coming out of their ears. And based on that, on the orders, we could secure within 2 weeks the first 7.5 million. Now we're talking about the next 15 to 25 million. And so that's for that particular situation. Is very successful, because before they're going to be cash flow positive, it'll take a long time, because it's a company that requires a tremendous amount of upfront investment. Partly because it's a business that you need to develop globally. If you're in the air conditioning market, well, you don't have to do as much air conditioning here as you do in Colombia, because as a kid also lived in Venezuela, so Maracaibo, that worked for sure. And so other parts of the world are, of course, much bigger target markets for that kind of a product. And so you have to different measure points. Is how fast can you grow, and how fast can you secure certain key markets for your product that are going to be very profitable markets in the future. And so there's no standard answer. How long should it take for a startup to be cash flow positive? Heck, if you're a biotech company and you have a next biggest blockbuster cancer drug, it may take you 8 to 10 years before you become cash flow positive. That's all in the game. Everybody knows that, because if it becomes an FDA-approved product, it's going to be a billion-dollar business, billions of dollars of business. And so it all depends. And e-commerce is different. So e-commerce, you have to have solutions to get to the market really quickly, but it will very rarely become a billion-dollar business. But it's not necessary.
And how are you going to evaluate those startups? Like in the next months, there's going to be like a framework or something to select, to choose the startups that Startup Delta is going to put their efforts on.
We first start out determining what are the core technologies that we're going to promote. So we're not just randomly take startups. So we first going to determine, and we're pretty much a pretty good idea, what are the core technologies that we want to promote as a country. and because we want to have a sequence of success stories, not just one success story, but a sequence. So energy transition is one of them, and so he said, okay, we're going to focus on energy transition, and that's where we're going to put the focus. That's where we're going to do the selection, and that's where we're going to create the success stories, and make sure that we have a constant inflow of new energy transition propositions, and that sometimes it's just a matter of gut feel, because especially with early stage startups, you cannot tell. I mean, it's just.
So it's more like a discussion between.
Well, it's just the gut feel of an entrepreneur.
Like build from experience.
This go to work, and so that's what I do. So when in the US, I was the one who had to start up companies, turn around companies, because I had the skill for a company that nobody knew what the hell to do with. I said, okay, I have an idea. We're going to do that. Well, how do you come up with ideas? Well, I don't know. That's just my gut feel. Don't ask me how to do that. Same as you ask somebody to write a song. Well, can you tell me exactly what moved you to write this song? You know, well, I don't know. I just heard it in my head and I wrote it out. Okay, that's how it goes. That's what creative thinking is from. Creative thinking is not a mathematical linear process. And so the top story, the top startups had this year, two of them, we had a whole committee, and the whole committee said, we don't believe in that company. They said, I do, because I know them, I know the team, and I believe in it because I know that maybe this business proposition on paper doesn't sound very good, but I know there's a dynamite team, and they're going to make a big success. Well, guess what? That company has already raised over 20 million euros. The whole committee said, no, that's garbage. It's okay. Guys, not my opinion. My opinion is going to be a winner, and they are a winner. And so it is not a mathematical process to identify and to spot high performers. And it's the same as in sports. And so it's kind of a skill to find the right talent, and so that's what I can do there, and that requires just a tremendous amount of experience, knowing what works and what doesn't work, knowing what teams are going to pull it off and which teams are not going to pull it off, and the assessment of the team skills is a very important one. Apart from the business proposition, you can have a wonderful business proposition. You have a team that can never execute. Forget about it. It's never going to be something. And but the other way can work. You can have a business proposition but a dynamite team, and with the necessary tweaks to the program, like a B2C model. So, your B2C model doesn't make sense because you don't have 5 million euros laying around, to build your custom business one tiny little customer at a time. So we're going to help you. We're going to help us enterprise partners and go from there. So All right, well, you have probably more questions before I keep talking.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I think that solved most of my questions.
All right.
Yeah. Then now at
measuring is also many things. I mean, all the metrics you mentioned. How many jobs did you create? How many growth did you create? Are you profitable or not? How much funding did you secure?
Yes.
If you targeted certain markets, were you successful in opening up these target markets, so that you don't say, well, I have a product, but I forgot about developing other markets, and now I'm just dying on the vine because I forgot about developing the international part of my business. So, and it's and every company is a little bit different, and because certain products, there is a huge market in the Netherlands. If you do something in healthcare, and which is a huge market, well, you probably don't have to go anywhere further than just the border of the Netherlands, and but for other propositions, you have to go much wider. So it all depends.
Okay. Yeah, I got a question like aside from my thesis. Like you say that it like mainly to focus on business to business models. So
well, the problem is because you have so many. Most of the early stage startups are not coming out of the business environment.
Yeah.
They don't know that world. So you need to introduce them to that world. If you don't introduce them to their world, it's not going to happen. So you need to find enterprise partners. You may have today, I got a company and said, well, we have a wonderful new little app, and, if you lose your luggage and so, and to identify your luggage at the airport. Well, you're not going to sell that to individuals.
Yeah.
You know, that will take you 50 years and 10 million euros to get somewhere.
Yeah.
If you go to an airline and said, you know, we have something, instead of people screaming in your face because they lost something, we have a very simple little tool. We can identify everything. So in a heartbeat, everybody happy. You need an airline, as I said. An airline say, okay, that sounds great. I'm going to promote that for you.
Yeah.
Because we do, like KLM, whatever, 30 million passengers, 30 million per year.
Yeah.
And in no time, you're in business.
Yeah. And what happens when it's like the business and the other business, like the client business is like a small, like for example in the exercise one Fit, for example, app that they have like connecting exercise places. Like that would be also more difficult.
Well, in the fitness business?
No, like in the one Fit, you know one Fit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, that I see it also like there is a gray scale between, because it could be like small business, like if the business is
well,
if
it's small but a very high margin, but it very rarely happens, because everything that is consumer focused, consumers expect everything almost for free, because a lot of stuff is for free. Facebook, everything is for free. So all of a sudden have to pay for something. People are very reluctant to do that. And so, but if it's a service that people highly value and pay a lot of money for, well, it all depends. I mean, if you're a very high margin business, you know, maybe you can use a limited amount of business to survive. Most of the time, that's not the case. And same deal with in the US. You see thousands and thousands of, you know, like fitness programs. You know, find your fitness coach and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Hell, you know, you have to have so many individuals that are willing to pay. And an individual can say, you know what? I'm sick of it. I'll stop with it. An enterprise partner is going to build it, be integrated in his business model.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
A consumer can say, you know, oh yeah, I did fitness because I'm going to get married next year and I want to slim down. I want to lose 10 kilograms. Okay, once the 10 kilograms are gone, they said, okay, skip the program, don't want it anymore. Bang, business gone.
Yeah.
And enterprise partners, you know, they integrate it in a business model and it becomes more predictable. The enterprise will say, okay, now we worked on version A, now we want to have B. You know, what can you add in functionality to your program? Also, that's also the beauty with working with enterprises. There's many more ways to add value to your business proposition, and that they are willing to pay for. And again, with consumers, it's much harder to do, to say, I have something and now you have to pay more. People say, I do what? I have to pay more? Everything else on the line is free. What are you talking about? A business has a totally different. Business has for businesses, they're looking at the ROI side. An individual doesn't look like, oh, my fitness program, I just want to lose 20 pounds.
Yeah.
But I'm not thinking about, oh, my ROI of this program was so much, and if I cancel it, you know, my ROI is, no, you just reach your goal, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
And
good. Yeah, that was more like a personal question. I had a curiosity about it.
Yeah.
Very interesting that you say about, like, it's more stable.
Of
business,
course.
Definitely. Yeah.
And because the real success stories that we have out of the accelerator were all people that we hooked up, and it ended up eventually with consumers, but we put an enterprise partner in between.
Yeah, like that.
An enterprise partner is going to create immediately to give you the critical mass.
Yeah.
They also become a development partner. An individual is not going to tell you, they said, no, if you could add that and that functionality to your program, it's not going to work. But enterprise partners said, you know, if you could add that and that to the program from our perspective, because we have another system in our organization, and it would be nice if we can interface with another program, can you do that? That also gives you a chance to really lock in a customer. So the enterprise partner that's going to integrate it in the business processes is not throwing it overboard if it's an integral part of their business processes. For the consumer, it's just like a standalone deal. And like a fitness program, it's just a standalone deal. If they quit the thing, there's nothing else in their life will change, other than they'll just will regain 10 pounds, and then maybe next year they will sign up again. Or maybe never.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
From TU Delft to, because I record, to sign a form. I don't have it now, so can I look for you later to sign it?
Of course.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I'm doing my thesis with my supervisor is Victor Scholten.
Oh yeah, I know him
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah, he told me he knows you.
Yeah.
We were last week with Victor Scholten, and it's very difficult for me to pronounce. Kees van Beers.
Oh yeah, Kees van Beers, yeah.
Kees van Beers. Yeah. So they are my supervisors.
Okay.
We were in my kickoff meeting last week. So when I started my internship in Startup Delta, I wanted to do a thesis related with the startup ecosystem. And as I love data and I love numbers, I decided to do a quantitative study on the startups of the ecosystem. And I want to do a predictive model on the success of startups. So something similar to what Dennis mentioned this morning.
Okay.
That we have a meeting at 2. That there is someone that does something similar or something like that. Yeah, so I want to. The previous models that they exist, there is other papers that do similar things. They use data that can be found on databases like Dealroom or like Crunchbase. So that has already been done, like predictive models from that kind of data. That kind of data is, for example, things like demographics from the founders, genders, or the industry that the company is in, these kind of things. What I want to do different in my model is that I want to collect data from the startups through questionnaires that you wouldn't find, or because it's usually not, you wouldn't find normally in a database.
Yeah.
But you would be interested in looking into that to see how that relates to the performance of a startup. So I have come up with a list that I'm building of variables that I want to measure and ask startups about it, and then do the quantitative analysis on that. So my main points, like that I'm talking with persons, is to like give me feedback on the things that I'm looking into, and to, if you have like different ideas or new variables that you would be interested into looking. I would also, that's one of my main things. Like if you have things that you think like, oh, it would be very interesting to see how they relates with the performance of startups. And also, I want to discuss. I need some clarity on how to measure the success. So I have some ideas. I will show you on the laptop.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
No, it's not easy. No. It's very. How do you say? Yeah, there is many opinions on. The papers that I've read, they measure success, or they measure the performance in many ways. So, because I'm interested in doing it as a classification, like yes or no, like success or not, and there is no special reason for that, except that I'm interested into machine learning and classification algorithms. Because I could also do something like predict the funding, or these kind of things. But I like doing the classification. So there are predictive models on try to see if a startup has achieved a certain round, so Series A, Series B, Series C, or achieved an exit, or also predicting the size, so like in terms of total funding, or in terms of valuation, in terms of number of employees. There is also studies on survivability, so they ask startups if they are still alive after 2 years, after 3 years, and that keeps going down until 10 years. In 10 years, there is like only one surviving. There is other studies that they measure success in terms of profitability, or like if they have like cash flow positive. They ask that on their questionnaires to startups, like right now, are you cash positive? But then I talked, for example, with Katya and Niels, and they told me like, so that's the complex thing. There are a lot of startups, they can be like burning a lot of cash and not being profitable, but how can you say if they are successful or not? So that's one of the things that I find difficult to measure.
What is the definition of a startup?
For me or in general?
Yeah, for your thesis. So is it if you start a grocery shop, is that also a startup?
No. So I started on the database so I'm based on the database of Dealroom, or the Finder data. So I assume that 90, like a lot of the data is still like already filtered to, because that's kind of filtered in a very qualitative way on like, oh, I think that's a startup, or I think that's not a startup. So if you see like upload an ice cream shop of my local neighborhood, Dealroom probably wouldn't upload it. But then there is gray points. Like, for example, I remember when I asked on one of the female founders, there was one startup that was like producing something on fashion, but then it was very difficult to see if it was a startup or not. And then, I really had to look into the web page, and then I saw that she was producing some things with 3D printing. And then I was like, okay, that can be a startup. But it's very difficult. But then if I base my data on the Finder data, then I assume that we have already selected like in that database there is already filtered to kind of startups. According to our definitions. I'm also cutting a lot of the outliers. So for example, in a lot of our analysis, we take into account like the big ones that we like to call like startups. I'm filtering all those for my analysis. So I'm filtering all the companies that have above 250 employees, and I do that because I'm OECD definition about small medium enterprises. So I put my cut on 250 employees. That's too big for me. And also on age, according to our definition, less than 20 years. According to on my research, I'm only looking into 10 years or less. I'm not because they are really outliers. Like when I look into the data of the companies that are 10 to 20 years old, they have like so much funding sometimes, so they really disrupt my analysis sometimes. So I like to look on the smaller set.
Okay.
The database has, when I download it directly, it has around 7,000 companies. Then one of the filters that we apply is that it has headquarters in the Netherlands. Then it goes lower. Then we apply that it's not a subsidiary. Then it goes lower. So that's already matching a startup delta definition. Also that is not more than one employee. And more than one employee, less than 20 years old. And then I think that's 5,000 companies with that criteria. And then from that I filter to my research. Not 20 but 10 years or less, no more than 250 employees. I'm also looking for only startups that I know the founders, because I want to look into their data. And also startups that I have full data on number of employees, on age, and funding. And that is like 1,000 startups that I have good data.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm going to collect, like on my own, by my site, like outside of Startup Delta, like how to contact them, and then I'm going to deliver questionnaires to them. So I already talked with Katya, Niels, about my research. I will take a bit.
It's okay.
So what I've talked with Niels, he told me like, yes, you can, like, you better do it at least at the beginning on your own, because collecting the data, like contacting the data, I will do that from my university email.
Yeah.
Then how startup data can help me, it's by sharing it in social media, if I have my questionnaire.
Yeah.
So it's not that invasive to startups. So yeah, I plan to collect data from all the startups. I will try to reach as many as I can, but my goal is to have at least 100 data points. That according to my calculations, that's a fair representative. That can be the minimum fair representative of the population.
Okay.
Yeah. And then while I eat, I will show you like some of the variables that I have written. And then I hope it has enough battery.
So what's this?
That's to protect it from the dust and spilling. If I accidentally drop this on top, it protects it. So it's a little bit disorganized, but these are like some of the. So here is like the
Team?
so these are the categories of the variables. The categories are not well named yet. This is like strategy. This is very difficult, but team is clear. This is strategy. I have to think about another name. Organizations are characteristics of the organization. This one you can ignore it for the moment. These ones are some that are like complex to discuss, so I can talk about that later. And this one is also very important. That these are like the how I measure how I'm going to define that success or that ultimate goal.
Yeah.
So you can have a look at it maybe while I eat a bit.
Number of founders, age, average age, gender composition, industry experience, management experience, entrepreneurial experience, international founders, international team, intrinsic motivation.
So that one of intrinsic motivation is one that I found on a paper. They give the responder of the questionnaire like a couple of options, 5 options, let's say. So what motivates them to start to have their startup, like financial independence or like passionate for the product or this kind of things.
Yeah, passion is always called one of the success factors. Mm-hmm. Education level, university connectedness. How do you do that?
Connectedness is very difficult, because if I was able to collect that data, because I'm going to collect the data from startups that they are already on the old, or like they could be a scale up by now, or they could be grow by now. So if I would be able to collect that data from their origins, I would look at their network. So I would try to look like LinkedIn connections, for example, would be a decent approximate, but I cannot do that. I cannot ask them which was your LinkedIn connections 5 years ago. Probably very difficult to measure for them. So I was just thinking on doing that like as one of these scales that goes from 1 to 7. Like 1 is like I was not connected at all. I knew no one in the industry or related with the topic. And 7, I was like, I worked a lot and I had my network built and like very connected. So from 1 to 7.
So connectedness to the
like my network.
To the industry.
Yeah.
To the relevant industry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This one is binary. That is like if I was
full time or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I know there's always been some research about the number of founders at MIT. I don't know which research, but yeah, for me, for the most important thing is team.
Sorry.
And also team dynamics. So so what I learned at Yes Delft, working at Yes Delft a few years, is what I noticed is that there's some really difficult stuff to measure, which are really important. That are really important. So one of them is culture.
Culture of the company.
Yeah. So.
So which would be like your ideal culture, like open and like flexible.
Yeah. For instance, things like what I always give the example is about how people have lunch.
Okay.
So some companies always have the same lunch, and it's all unhealthy food. Others have always very healthy food.
Yeah, I was talking about. I mentioned to Katja was very when I went to San Francisco to this scale up that is called Thumbtack. Do you know it?
No.
It's a marketplace for service providers for like service providers for your home, like painting or repairing, these kind of things. And their working place was really nice. And when they received us, they had this amazing food and this amazing chef. And the guy that we interviewed was like the CEO, I think. And he was like, I was not part of the founding team, but I know that the chef was their 10th hire. So you know how important was food for the founders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
well, that kind of stuff. So that's really difficult to make it tangible.
Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah.
But culture is an important one. Is there a strong culture or is there not a strong culture? That's maybe more important. So at DSL also the successful companies, they all had a strong culture. So you immediately knew this is a guy from that startup. They are all kind of the same. They act the same. They are all, they have the same kind of lunch. They have they react the same. They all react to emails soon, or they don't read the emails at all. But it is kind of similarity.
And do you think
both in diversity in the team, but similar in the way they act?
And do you think that culture is built by making efforts on building that culture?
Yeah.
Okay. Or just because it builds itself?
Well, a good entrepreneur knows how important it is, but also sometimes they're not even aware of it, but they put a lot of effort into it.
Good. It's very,
very so that's an important one. Another one is also really difficult to make it tangible, is how fast they adopt new insights.
Okay.
So you have a meeting and you have a keynote of somebody about sales, and then you see, this is interesting, this is exactly what we had problems with, and then the good teams, they immediately start implementing the new insights. Other team can take many months before they act. So it is like learning and acting on the same. That is really one of the key things. All the things about pivoting. Pivot. It's overstated, I think, the pivoting importance. But it is the idea that you learn and adopt. And how faster you do that, how better you are as a company.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So that's also a really difficult thing to make it tangible.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I agree.
But those are
really
two of the main things that I learned.
Yeah.
And of course, the things like the average age, so that's easier. But that's why I don't really believe, to be honest, in predictive models.
Yeah.
Because
I think it would be more like
it is this kind of stuff that you need to be. Those are really the drivers of success.
Yeah.
So okay, but then maybe to go back to the team, international founders. So we have the diversity, the number, average age, industry experience, entrepreneurial experience. Of course, the competition. So, do you already have something about competition?
It's there, but I'm not sure how hear others because I'm not sure how to what to look into competition.
If you do have an AI startup in predictive maintenance, you have a lot of competitors right now.
Oh, okay.
And if you do something for I don't know what, well, of course it differs if you have, and then you don't know if that's is your chance of success higher or lower. If there's no competition, then probably is no market.
Yeah, true.
And if there is a many competition, probably is a booming market. So that's a difficult one too.
Yeah, that could probably be like if I would ask founders about it, like how was the competition up there in the early stages, if it was like high or low, that would be.
Yeah. Mechanic versus organic.
What
does that mean? Mechanic versus organic?
That's kind of the things of the. It's kind of overlapped with the culture. So mechanic versus organic is. I would also put that on a grayscale. Mechanic is like a company that is very structured, very formal, very hierarchical. Organic is more like free, flat structure and that.
Yeah. Interesting. B2B, B2C. That's interesting. Legal structure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Industry. Most active business model. Revenue model. What's the difference between business model and revenue model?
Yeah, that was something that I was also discussing with Katya now. So there is in this paper, for example, this is the business models.
Yeah.
But this one is a little bit strange. And revenue model, it's this one. So also deal
subscription. Yeah.
Deal room has also these variables here. These are the business models that they have.
Okay.
But I don't know much about that, so I'm a bit confused with also business models and revenue model.
There is an overlap because the revenue model is part of the business model.
Oh, okay.
And so the business model is also how you get your distribution done.
Okay.
For instance. But revenue model is part of the business model.
So I can just ask about one, like business model, probably.
And I use business model.
Yeah. Okay.
So seriously. Another thing is, for instance, what amount of money do you need to go to market?
Oh,
so
okay.
the time to market and the money to market. I don't know how you call that.
Yeah.
Because if you have a clean tech company, you want to have a hydrogen car. You want to build a hydrogen car. You need a lot of money.
Yeah.
And if you have a mobile app, you don't need a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I think that it is also probably important to know time to market and the money to market.
Time to market and money to market. Now, how would you? I will just write it here. So time to market would be how long from the start of your
until you can have revenue.
When did you start go to market, like the time that passed from your origin to that point, right? And money, how much did you collect before?
Before you got revenue.
Oh, okay.
Just if you only need 50,000 euros, then it's easier than if you need 1 million or 100 million.
Yeah.
And if it takes you probably 6 years, for instance, medical, you need all those clinical trials, so it's a long time to market. And if you have just a simple consumer product, then you have a short time to market. If you have a consultancy firm, you have a time to market of 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
And that, of course, makes it easier to make a success out of your company. So probably that is also an important one.
Okay. Yeah.
So, for instance, jullie maken echt rondjes, hè? So the idea is that if you have a clean tech company, it needs more time and money. And what you see is that the average age of a clean tech company is much higher than a mobile app company.
Yeah.
Because you need more experience. So that's a different kind of startup. And so that's probably, it says a lot about why their average age is a lot higher. Because you need industry experience and and probably you need to raise 100 million. Thanks. You need to be able to raise 100 million euros, and that's different from a mobile app startup.
You can start with tens of thousands.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look into that definitely.
Yeah.
So I think I was also, when I do a predictive model, then I have to define like a starting point where the prediction is made, and then the point where the success is achieved. So I have been thinking because like if I look into the so when they like I can look at the first point when they are like until they get their minimum viable product, all the characteristics just before that. So there I can look into things like how much money they collected before that, how much time. Because when they get their minimum viable product, that's when they started to go to the market, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very interesting question. I can also look probably at the team that they have, like the size of the team that they have, like how many employees, and probably the configuration of that, like which key. Well, it depends a lot on the industry. Like if they have certain profiles on their team.
Yeah, but I think interesting is, for instance, the diversity in ages and backgrounds.
Yeah.
But you see, for instance, for the Yes Delft companies, you see many of those companies have 95% engineers.
Yeah, true.
Only when they go to market, most of the time after that they are sold to a bigger company, or they have to expand into a real company with marketing people and sales people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But other companies have a completely different setup. So it's really difficult to say one thing in general about all startups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Really, really interesting. I will take notes on that. Okay. And I think that those are all my variables. And the next thing that I would like to discuss is that measure of success. Like how would you know that if you would to classify, like if they have achieved their goals or not, how would you measure that?
Yeah, that's really difficult because in general, if you look at, for instance, the success of Yes Delft, then you can look at the total amount of funding and the total amount of jobs created, which are both relatively objective and are correlated to the success of all the startups. But if you look at an individual startup, let's look at Ampelman, which is the most successful Yes Delft startup up to now. They had no external funding.
Oh, really? It's only
they're bootstrapped, and they had some bank finance. That's
really?
it.
Wow.
And so they were sold. So an exit value is saying something of success, but the number of people working there, and of course the revenue. But the difficult thing is that people don't want to share that.
Yeah. Revenue is one of the things that I know it's one of the most important metrics, but it's very difficult to get that data. So I'm not considering that one.
Yeah. You could also maybe look at social media, but then you have a big difference between business to consumer or business to business.
Yeah, true. I think I was thinking on two things. One, so if I use the metrics, for example, I can combine the total funding with the employees, and then I can look at the distribution of how, like, then I can say like which ones are above the mean and which ones are below the mean.
Yeah.
On that.
You could do that, yeah.
Yeah, and the other one would be just to classify according. Yeah, that's what I was telling you before about if they have achieved profitability or like cash flow positive. But there is some like cases where that's not necessarily success.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I think the visitors on the website or the latest update on the website, things like that is also a big sign of if there's energy in the company or not.
Okay.
So if you look at a website of a startup and the last update on Twitter was 2 months ago, then probably there's not so much happening.
Yeah.
So I believe Dealroom is also using that one criterion. is the number of unique visitors to the website. And of course, there's a difference between B2B and B2C, but still, you know, when there's a lot of things happening, but that could be like it's a promising startup, then everybody is having a look. But it's not. It's something different than success. So it is really difficult.
Web metrics.
I would say jobs, number of jobs is really important.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can probably create a combined thing of employees and total funding, and also look. I think on the web metrics is that there is not much data on that, like on the database on
Deal room.
On deal room. I don't have it here, but it's usually just a few of them that has data on the. But I can have a look at it. Yeah, I can use it, or I can even ask on the questionnaires.
Yeah.
They know their metrics. So
Yeah.
I can ask them. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thanks. I think that would be it.
That will be it.
Yeah. I think I have a lot of valuable information from that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Jan. I can send you you are here in the afternoon. Okay. I can,
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
okay. So I can print and you can sign the.
Yeah. I will.
Okay. Do you
Okay.
have any other suggestions or other
No.
metrics that you?
Well, I think that it is good if you have a kind of classification of the startups. So clean tech.
Okay.
So even better, more than B2B.
Okay.
So high capital intensive startups or something like that, then makes it more difficult. But
Yeah.
then you probably get better results.
Yeah. Like if
Like mobile app startups and a clean tech startup is so different.
completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are like control variables. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Have you seen the? Yeah. So I have discussed already with Willem and with Niels. Yeah. And right now, what I'm trying to do is to think about which questions I'm going to ask on the questionnaires to the startups.
Okay.
As I already discussed with Niels, I'm going to do that like completely on my own, because it's not clear yet if that can be aligned to startup Delta's goal or not. So yeah, my everything I can all my results can be very valuable in that. Right? Yeah. So right now, what I'm trying to do is to think. I'm going to send questionnaires to a sample of startups in the ecosystem. So I will search for the data on my own. I already selected the startups. I already seen which founders are they. I'm searching for the how to contact them. Niels to tell me that it was also possible to help me by social media. So to send to fill in the questionnaire, but mainly like a publication on social media. And yeah, I'm thinking about the questions that I should ask, like the data that I want to collect. So that's what I want to get from the interviews. So the interviews are not like it's not a structured interview, not a specific set of questions. I just want to know which. So the main question would be like which are the factors that make a startup successful, and how to measure that success. So it's those two parts. I also realized from talking to Niels that if I asked that at the beforehand, I would probably receive like typical responses. So it's also useful if I show you like the ideas of data that I can collect, and then we can discuss so for example this is so this is one of the lists that I have come up with. So I would search for variables at 3 levels of, but yeah, I am not sure how many levels, but team level is one of the most important ones. So ask about the team, about their strategy or like decision making. Not sure about this name yet. Things about like the characteristics of the organization, environmental things. I haven't put much there, and others. These others is something that I really want to discuss because it's not easy to define, or I have not much knowledge on this one. And the criteria is how to measure that success.
Okay.
So, for example, on the team, I have mentioned these ones. So one is the number of founders, age of the founders, and that would be like an average, because if I ask the founders, the average, the gender composition, so similar to the female founder report, there would be 3 categories: only male, mixed, or female. Industry experience, this would also be an average of numbers of years if someone has.
Can I stop you here? So you're not going to ask about other race background, right?
Another?
Other nationalities or...
Oh, so I have this one, it's international team. So
okay, yeah. So if it's all Dutch or not, yeah,
or
mixed.
if they have a
So it's just a simple yes or no.
international founders,
All right.
because team could be different, right?
Yeah, or international
I'm
team, I guess.
It could also be team, yeah. Or team.
Yeah, it's 2 different ones. It will be interesting to see if there's a correlation between international founders and success.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and also that's one of the things that I wanted to ask, because some of the papers, they measure the team, the starting team. So I'm not sure if I ask, because I will ask startups about their past. So is it possible that I ask if how big was their initial team?
How big was their initial team?
Yeah, is there some point that you get, like, for example, I have me and another founder,
Yep.
and then I hire an initial team. Is that relevant? Like I hire 3 engineers or something like that, and then my initial team is 5 persons, or is nothing like.
I think it's anecdotal, right? How did you build the team? Like, I don't know if you're going to do some sort of that anecdotal sort of experience as well. Some companies really build a product team first. For instance, I was speaking to this founder last week, and his team was all focused on product development and R&D. And they didn't have anyone with commercial background in the team.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they were already working on the business for a year. And I said, it could be really interesting for you to start talking to first off, to start thinking about what your growth and sort of strategy is. And this is a food company, so do you want to exit this company 5 years from now to Unilever? Do you want to sell it? Is it a B2C company? Or do you see yourself raising a lot of venture capital or other funding to grow the company really fast to global markets? Or do you see yourself very pleased with market reach in the Netherlands, which is fully revenue funded growth for the company? But it all started obviously with the team. Is the team really sort of focused on R&D and the product?
Yeah.
Or do you have someone in the team who's also
That's
thinking
like
about what company are we building and how are we building the company, not just product?
That would be also very interesting from what I saw.
I think it's if you look at one of our assumptions, looking at the ecosystem and looking at deep tech founders mostly in the Netherlands, is that a lot of them are really product focused, not company building strategists.
Yeah, so some of those questions could be answered from. So if I ask the founders, for example, in their experience, because I was these 3 things. One would be industry experience.
Yeah, good one.
You would probably this would be in.
Do you want to do industry experience relevant to the business? Because they might come from completely different backgrounds as well, right? You can make it 2 separates.
Yeah.
Like, do you have previous work experience in big corporates?
Yeah.
And do you have corporate network that is relevant to your current business?
Oh, okay.
From that previous work experience.
Oh, okay. So
because, for instance, if you have worked with, a Big 4 auditing firm, and the solution you're building is a new fintech auditing solution, might be really relevant. But for some other roles, you know, that might not be the relevant network for launching your product with a new customer.
Okay.
But still, you'll have the understanding of how these companies work, right? How they're organized internally.
Yeah, I can divide it like that.
Okay.
So it was industry experience. That
Yeah.
I was thinking that more like anything that is not like technical experience mainly, management experience, and that I have like like management and entrepreneurial experience. So for example, entrepreneurial experience for me was a yes/no question. If they have like any experience like trying to launch a startup before, that would be.
You get a lot of research looking at if you're a first-time founder or second time or third time. And obviously also then it becomes really relevant, did you exit that previous company? Because a lot of the research that you're seeing now is success is defined by founders exiting multiple companies before building the really big one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because with every churn, every exit, they have two benefits. One, they've learned how to build that company for an exit.
And resources.
And they have the resources.
Like a network and money.
Yeah, right. And maybe it's interesting to see if that's the second time entrepreneurs or the third time entrepreneurs. So you could do a simple yes or no, but you might also be able to measure a bit more about did you exit that company and that you then reinvest that money into your current company.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I think it's in that sense it's limited. I guess it's difficult for me to measure it in the model because it would be like a special case for one of the responders.
Yeah, maybe it's something that you can anecdotally sort of add on to the data when you analyze the data. You can say,
true. Then I have like what we talked before about international configuration. This one is also that I saw on one of the papers. That is the motivation of the founders. I'm not sure which were the categories, but it would be like
It's hard to define.
Yeah, true.
Could you not specify it as? Do you have a clearly defined culture for the business or vision, mission statement even?
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of founders try to get that right early on because it helps them with their hiring and recruiting.
Yes.
If you have this is the mission statement for this company, we really want you to be on board with that, and that also from that there follows a set of culture criteria that they test and assess their team members on.
Oh, okay.
Like leadership principles.
Sure.
I spoke to someone recently who'd done a series of interviews with the ocean cleanup project, and she mentioned that there they have a whole set of culture criteria that they check in the first rounds of interviews.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because they really want to make sure that. So I don't know. Motivation is hard to check, right?
Yeah,
But
motivation.
Maybe the translation of that would be.
But I think what I saw motivation on the papers that I read, it was what made you want to launch your startup. Independence or like the adventure of making your startup or
Want to be rich.
Yeah, want to be rich. Yes.
Okay, so are you going to define like 5 motivations or?
Yeah, different categories.
So that they can pick and choose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
Gotcha.
Education level, this would be like higher education, bachelor, master, PhD.
Sure.
University, I was thinking like I could take from the Quarelli Simons top list.
Yeah, sure.
Because for example, my roommate, he has a startup here, but his university is outside, so I cannot only take the universities from here, but also international universities.
Yeah, smart.
And they are ranked, so I can kind of define like which are like higher ranked.
Yeah.
This one is one that I've seen in a lot of papers, but I don't know how to define it. That is called connectedness, like how well connected were they when they started their startup. If I would be on the point of on that point of time, that I could like if I can make this research like in 2 points of time, like now measure startups and then see how they develop. What I would do now as an approach of how well are they connected, I would look at their LinkedIn connection, for example.
Sure, but
maybe but I cannot
also
ask that about the past.
No, but maybe I'm a visual person, so typically when I see something like that and I think about research, I have this map pop up that is vector connectivity. Like it has this founder been to Stanford University? Has he then gone to Columbia for an MBA and come to the Netherlands, worked in 2 different companies? So does that mean that he has these pockets of network that are across Atlantic? Or is he from Enschede? Was he born and raised there? Has he lived there all his life? And is this connectivity mostly?
What I was thinking to do
I don't know.
What I was thinking to do that is that I can put like you know what a Likert scale is? Likert scale is like when they ask in these questionnaires that is from 1 to 7.
Yeah.
So the left one would be like not not connected, and the right one would be connected, and then I can define on the right connected would be like I have networks in multiple countries around the world, and I have numerous connections.
Right.
And the left one would be like I only have connections in my local community, and I don't have many of them. These kind of things.
Okay, so it's more quantitative.
Yeah, like
Qualitative.
Yeah, more qualitative because it's difficult.
It's really a smart way to do it.
So I would measure. I think I can measure it like that. This one about I don't know how to name this yet, but time dedication. I refer like.
That's a really important one.
Yeah, because it could be founded
full-time committed,
full-time,
or are they still working a job?
Yeah,
that's very common.
Exactly. This one was also I saw it in another paper that it was which was their income on the previous job before starting the startup.
Good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it shows a level of seniority into the job.
Yeah. This one it's also I was thinking because of the. Yeah, when you're like in investments, when they measure your risk aversion, like if you are, that would also be like a Likert scale from 1 to 7. Like, are you
smart,
more conservative, or are you more risk taking?
Yeah.
Well, it can also be. It's also in the past because people can change in that sense. So I would ask, like, how would you think you were when you started your startup? You were more risk averse, or you were more conservative?
Nice.
Yeah.
And this again, you can use the Likert skill for that. Okay.
Yeah, I can use the Likert skill.
And have you defined your sub questions there already, or is that coming from the Likert skill? Will you have some examples there that you can use?
What do you mean?
It sounds like with Likert skill you're going to use probably a subset of 5 questions or something like that.
No, I would put like I would put like the 2 extremes, and then
just one question per item. So risk adverse versus risk.
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Or 0 to 10.
How do you?
Okay. Yeah. And for the same for the time dedication on a scale from.
Well, time dedication. No, I was actually thinking this one could be only yes or no, like full time or part time. I was.
Yeah. So the connectedness was fine. Right, yeah.
Connectedness was Likert scale, yeah. I think I can measure like that. I was not sure. So that would be mostly about the team. So I have to think about if I can ask about the founders and also about the team.
Yeah.
About the configuration. For example, what you said before I think it's really valuable. For example, when I went to San Francisco, they were always talking about the first 10 hirings. So I remember funny anecdote. They said like the 10th in Tomtac. Do you know Tomtac?
Tomtac? No.
Yeah. Tomtac is it's a marketplace to look for service providers for house repairs and these kind of things in the US. It's
contractors.
Scale up. Yeah. So to repair your house or paint or these kind of things. And their offices were amazing. And their food was amazing, so the CEO told us like, the founders, their 10th hiring was the chef.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I remember that. So one of the things that you said was like,
that's also very San Francisco because the competition for talent is so super high there.
Yeah, so I can also ask, for example, if in their first 10 hiring they have someone in marketing, or they have someone. With certain backgrounds, like did you have like a marketing background person in your first 10 hires or these kind of things? Yeah. Or your first 5 hires.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And about the chef, I think I would do the same.
Yeah. Smart one.
This one, so that's category of the team. The other category is about the strategy. So this one, I only have a few. So business plan is if they did like a formal business plan. So if they put on words, for example, these things about the mission, the vision, a forecast of their cash in the future, these kind of things. It's a business plan or a pitch deck, right? So it did what again?
I'm sorry. It's a business plan or a pitch deck.
I don't know.
Most startups typically build, what I've seen,
Yeah.
not, they don't write up a business plan, but they create a pitch deck
Yeah,
that sort of allows them to sort of strategize how they position a company.
Oh, okay. I
And also
haven't
pitch
seen
it
one.
to investors.
Okay, I haven't seen one. I only learned that word like last week. Pitch deck.
Pitch deck, yeah.
Yeah, I only.
It's in fact it's a presentation of the
Okay.
company's business plan.
It's like a long version of the pitch, right?
Yeah, and if you Google it, for instance, if you Google like most successful pitch decks, you'll see some really great early examples of Uber and some of these companies that created the deck, and that was actually the presentation that they used to convince investors to invest in the company.
So they always have a pitch deck.
Typically.
Okay.
Tech startups, yeah.
And on those pitch deck, for example, when I remember, because like Colombia is much more like, well, less startup thing and entrepreneurial. So we were always teach about business plans.
Yeah. I guess, if you look at SME companies and the way that they
probably
sort of
more
apply for
business plans.
subsidies and things like that, then they'll have a business or talk to the bank about the company.
Yes, because
That's
they
a
need like
business
a
plan.
forecast of their
Yeah,
cash
and they make a
flow.
forecast of a couple of years of what that would mean for the company.
Oh, okay.
Typically, in the scene of tech startups, it's mostly pitch decks, and obviously there's spreadsheets behind it to substantiate what is in the deck. But the decks are typically like 10, 15 pages of this is what it's all about.
Okay, I will have to look at that.
Yeah.
Good. The next one, something that I got from San Francisco. If I'm not sure here what happens, but there they give equity to employees.
Yeah,
to
same
their
here.
first employees.
It's a way to recruit people.
Okay, they always do, or
No, it could be part of your strategy to find the best
so
talent.
it's a good question.
But
to
it's common, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
It's common in most companies to offer stock in the company because it's an incentive.
to work
Because
hard.
you work hard, because you own the company, and it also helps you keep the salary costs lower.
I remember there was a question around in the last month about the way they pay the employees. There was something I remembered. Someone was in Startup Delta.
So we're pushing hard for the current system in the Netherlands is that the taxation over your equity in a company already starts before you actually get any dividends, because it's perceived ownership of a company that has a value on paper, and then the tax authorities look at that and then they tax you over that, and we're pushing hard for the taxation over that ownership to be at the moment of actual returns, like once you get dividends from that, or once you sell the equity package and you get some money for it. Because the current situation is not favorable.
Okay.
You can work around it as a company, but it's a little complicated. So it's a good question.
This one, it's we received an email
And,
with
and,
Danish.
and I guess you have it under strategy because it goes into your talent strategy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Like the decisions that you have to take about how. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I think this could enter, this forecasted demand can enter into the business plan thing. This was a question that they asked us in the email to Dennis and me. If we knew which startups and how did they do to forecast their demand in the future. So I was thinking on asking them if they did have any forecast on their demand.
Okay.
I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, and forecasted demand. Some companies have a strategy to take pre-orders for their product as well. Some deep tech companies that have very high costs in production will take pre-orders, like Lightyears, the solar car company, and Tesla actually is a great example. They're pre-selling their car, so they have a sort of a pre-order amount already on the balance sheet that they can work with to invest in the production of the car. And what's also strategy-wise, some companies have a strategy to sort of crowdsource the funding for their company, like in a very early stage of product development, already put the product online to build a fan base, build potential customer base, but also get investment into the company. Could be a strategy question.
This one not local.
But I guess that's the funding strategy question, right?
Yeah, about the funding strategy. Yeah. So, okay, the next one is about if it's local or not local. I found it in a paper if they had like their first customers out of a 50 kilometers radius. If they have like a more extended, it can also be like if they have customers out of 50 kilometers radius. That's what I found in one paper. This one is if they did a prototype. I guess I imagine some go straight to the MVP, and I imagine if they did an early prototype, that would be like also a yes/no question.
Why? How is that a strategy though? Like prototype,
Not
I think
strategy,
it's
but
part
like
of the
decision making or like.
No, maybe prototype is more what stage of development is your company in? Are you prototyping it? Do you have your MVP? Are you scaling up your production? It's more to me, in my mind, it would be more sort of a what stage development are you at?
But do they always do a prototype or?
A hardware company would, yeah.
Okay.
And I think most
not
software
prototype,
companies
but
also
like a proof of
prototype, and
concept.
then they.
Like, yeah, true.
No, yeah, prototype is typically sort of part of the whole. Where
process.
you at? Are you still thinking of what you want to do, and sort of prototype is a little bit later than that.
For example, if you are a app developer, some people would, for example, if I would go to develop an app, first I would like do the concept, like in an interface, just the front end.
Sure. And
that would be my prototype.
Yeah.
But I guess some people go straight to the developing of the minimal viable product. Or not?
I don't think that's advisable, because there's a whole sort of, you want to take those steps, right?
Yeah.
And maybe sort of design think the way that you want to do this app.
Okay.
And you go through the stages of, what customers do I want to serve with this? How am I going to onboard them? What is the interface going to look like? What is the technical backend going to look like?
Yeah.
All these things you probably have to design first, and then your prototype is really sort of a first beta launch of what the app might look like, right? Very bare naked, to get customer feedback. And test it out.
Exactly. Okay.
And then from that, you probably develop the next prototype.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Until you come to
most would follow that sequence. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's lean startup, right?
Yeah.
It's all these steps that you go through.
Okay.
So what you could do if you wanted to check where the organization is you could take the steps of lean startup and sort of check with the companies that you're interviewing. Okay, so where are you in this process? Are you still validating your business model? Do you have MVP? Do you have revenue?
Yeah, so that's one that would be like at the criteria at the end.
Right.
These are more about the organization. So I was thinking if they're a tech company.
Aren't all companies tech companies?
So now? I would define that on a, because they would say like tech. So I would define that on a range from 1 to 7.
Okay, yeah. So how important is tech to your company?
Yeah. So the first one would be like it's tech, like a tech enables.
Yeah.
Because all use tech for something. I guess.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You
exactly.
use internet.
Yeah.
And the 7 would be like actively developing new technologies.
Yeah. So software company or hardware tech company.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I would do that on that scale.
Yeah.
This is the same on the Likert scale.
What is organic? Scale. Is that bio?
So organic would be like flat structures, not many procedures, not very formal.
Oh, it's the organizational structure.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And mechanic would be like a lot of procedures, very hierarchical.
So it's hierarchical versus.
Yeah, because
flat.
It has like three aspects. One is like the hierarchy. The other one is like the procedures, and it's not only hierarchy, but if there has a lot of procedures.
Okay.
And it can also be like, I would put a description of this is mechanic, this is like organic.
Yeah.
And like our startup is super chill out, or it was super chill out.
Gotcha.
Business to business versus business to consumer. Mm-hmm. Legal structure.
Yeah.
I have to look which are the legal structures here in the Netherlands.
Sure.
Industries, I would take the ones from Dilbram, similar ones. Business models, they can take different. So these are the ones. I was thinking of using these ones, but I'm not sure how they do this. These are the business models that are on the Finder.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So they take one of them, or they can take... They usually... So if I ask them which are their business model, they can answer with one?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And a lot of companies will use that, or... Yeah, no, this makes sense.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like exclusive. I only have SAS. Or like I can ask which is your primary main business model, and they would ask.
Yeah, but I don't see a lot of the business models that are not software, like subscription manufacturing, obviously, sales commission. Yeah, so commission is you sell for someone else. Marketplaces you sell. So where is retail or?
So there's also this list because I was this one. I think they have it better business model. No, where is it? Business model. Business model. Yeah, here one. Freemium, platform experience, subscribers, affiliate markets, mass customized,
Yeah,
e-commerce.
but where is the regular sort of retail? Some people still sell to
Yeah.
like stores, right?
Yeah, true.
Outlets, and B2B is another. But that's not the business model. That's the customer. But yeah, I certainly miss the or sort of wholesale retail category.
Okay. Maybe it's
where you
there.
sell to a reseller or you sell to
Where is it?
a store directly.
Maybe it's there, but it's not listed there.
But if you go back, if you don't mind.
Here. Maybe it is there, but it's not listed on the top.
Yeah, and I guess it's in the whole sort of, do you get a commission over this resell or...
I would probably have to ask Dildrum how they selected this.
Yeah, exactly. Because for me it's hard to see the regular like e-com I get, but then so maybe marketplace for them is everything in a store.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. Okay. No, but yeah, I would say marketplace was like an online market.
Yeah, me
no?
too. Like
Yeah.
marketplace to me is a platform, right?
Yeah.
It's a marketplace or.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I would check with them.
Yeah, well, I can check or I can look for...
I'm sure they've thought about this a lot, but.
Yeah. Revenue model, that's another one. Yeah, where is this? Revenue model. So it's also overlapping with the business model.
Commission-based service, advertising, subscription, referral, production, market-based. Yeah, makes sense.
Yep.
Yep.
So the commission is not part of the business model, but more of the revenue model. I think these categories makes more sense than the Finder one. Maybe, or I have to check the category.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think so too. Let me double check this one again. So cluster premium platform, crowd, long-tail subscribers, affiliate market, mass, and not a platforms, e-commerce. Wow, it's a lot that I don't know
Yeah,
how they
true.
would work. But
And it's probably they're not that known, so
no, right?
yeah.
Maybe you could just pick the 5 most commonly used ones.
Yeah. I will check
Like
that.
SaaS and
Yeah.
all those things are.
Yeah, well, I will check those.
That's what a lot of companies use.
Environmental, I haven't selected many of them. It's not even
What does it
environmental.
mean, environmental?
I'm not sure yet. Like,
Footprint?
no,
Are
no,
you
no, no.
conscious about-
Environmental about the organization, like,
Ah.
for example, like competitivity of the industry, these kind of things. But yeah, but I haven't defined that, or how can I?
Like
measure
very
it?
disruptive or sort of.
Yeah, like, for example, the technology there.
How will you check the level of innovation of a company? Like, are you super innovative, taking on existing
because
business
that's on
models
some
and
papers.
disrupting, or
There is, for example, this on this one. Where is it? They have this one, for example, technological hype.
yeah,
That they take it from this it's called Gartner hypercycle. Gartner hypercycle. So they take it from this chart, and this is like how hyped is the technology, and they have like a list of technologies every year, and like like AI or like.
no, this is something else.
But they take it from here.
Yeah, the hype cycle is all these. What is like 5G, everyone's talking about that right now,
Yeah.
right? And obviously the IoT thing is huge still. Blockchain is sort of on its return. Interesting.
But then
Plateau will be reached in.
the thing is that it's also.
But this is not what I meant, though. I think mine was more around. Is the company is the company you're talking to developing something that is radical innovation, or is it incremental innovation?
Incremental innovation. Yeah, that would be.
Because I think that's interesting, right? Because the radical innovation is super tough to do, while incremental innovation could be rocket internet. The model is already working in the marketplace, and now we're going to set it up for super successful hyper growth by making some smart choices and investing.
Incremental versus radical. And I will check that. I can also put that on a Likert scale, like of your product, how radical your innovation was. Yeah, that's a good
exactly.
question, yeah.
I think that's a good one.
Yeah. So, and these are the ones that I have.
Where are the early ones? Because I think you're going to talk to a lot of early stage companies, probably, right?
Yes. So because it would be my criteria of the success that they get. So that's one of the complicated things. Like I'm going.
Oh, right. So they have raised money, so they're successful.
Because I'm doing like a classification model, like a machine learning classification thing. Let's say I have 100 startups that they are all already good candidates, not good candidates, but like they have this like the conditions that they could already be achieve that success.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, they are above 3 years old, or they have had the opportunity to grow, and then I select like 50 that is going to be my training data, and 50 that is going to be like my test data. So I'm going to take the startups or scale-ups that they are already not mature, but they have already achieved. They could have already achieved a certain success, and then the idea is that with that train model, then I can evaluate the early stage, very early stage startups to see how they're going to perform in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can I'm thinking I will not include startups younger than 3 years old.
Yep.
I think that because there is like if I count how many startups there are, there is a lot from 3 years old, but then the data goes down for 2 years old, like 3 years old, 2 years old, 1 year old, and like this year there is like 15 because there is not many data yet, and then it starts growing up.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So I would. So that is my main like dilemma. Or for example, I was thinking like measure success after 3 years. So for example, if they have achieved, if they are like profitable, or they have like achieved a break-even point after 3 years, 3 years of age.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that, and these are not the most common companies, but I know a number of companies that have raised up to 8 million before Series A, and that have sort of gone to global markets, huge onboarding of customers, all these things. And especially companies that sort of take the route of crowdfunding as well. You know, you have these really successful campaigns on
that's one of the questions
Kickstarter
that I wanted
or
to ask.
Indiegogo, where companies raise multiple millions to launch their company.
So that's one of the things that I wanted to add, like seed or pre-seed funding. Pre-seed.
Yeah, exactly.
Seed funding source. That'd be more like categorical.
Smart. Yeah. Good to put that in.
Yeah, that one I was thinking of included. Like, which was your main source of? I was thinking as a category. Like, which was your first source of pre-seed money? Like, was it your family, or was it an angel investor? Was it an accelerator?
Right.
Or this? That as a factor to predict the success.
Yeah. And maybe I don't know if you want to do this, but obviously, I think also for the finder, it's interesting to see which successful companies are coming out of incubators and accelerators. Like,
True.
is that a measure for success that they've gone through like super intense support program for a couple of months?
So there was one variable on one of the papers that I read that it was knowledge mentorship, and the options were like accelerators or like universities or like venture capitals.
Nice.
They were categorical. Yeah. Good. And then, my main problem is to define, like, if I can define that success after a certain point, like if they would be profitable at some point after 3 years and less than 10 years. Because in my definition, I'm not taking startups older than 10 years for my research. So if they are going to achieve that success in that range of time, between 3 to 10 years.
That's super interesting because a lot of companies now have the business model of not wanting to be profitable.
Yeah, true.
But to be the largest in their sort of industry across the globe.
So that would be more revenue.
Therefore, they sort of invest all the money back into the company. And have huge costs to scale up, and then they don't reach profitability for a number of years. Like Uber, for sure. WeWorks is another one that is just bleeding money.
Oh, okay. Then it's very difficult to define how.
What success for them is the value of the company.
I think the best
metric. I think that's sort of a common sort of thing, right? We look at the unicorns that are valued at over $1 billion. That's a measure of success.
I would say the best measure of success, if that data would be easy to collect, would be like the growth rate of their revenue.
Or onboarding of customers. If you're building a platform, it depends per business model. But so I think that's why sort of the common thing that they use now is perceived value of the company.
Like the valuation.
Yeah, so that's why these A rounds will help you define the value of the company. Because the invested amount of money is sort of multiplied by, I think, 3 or 4 for the value of the company.
Oh, okay.
So in the pre-seed round, even if you've already raised 8 million, the value of the company is, let's say, 50 million. Right? So the owners and the equity owners of the company are millionaires on paper.
And the valuation is something that is easy to find? Or?
Yeah, there are models for it. If you check it online, for instance, Brad Felt, you can look up his Brad Felt.
B-R-E-D?
B-R-A-D.
Right.
Brad Felt. Okay. Yeah, it's two names, like Brad Felt. Yeah. So he has written a book which is pretty much seen as the Bible for term sheets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you use that, you'll have something that is sort of theoretic grounding for company valuation.
The data has like a range of valuation, but I think the range is too open, too big. And there is not enough data. Like you can see, there is a lot of blank spaces.
So what you could do is, what you know of funding amounts.
I have total funding.
Yeah, maybe you can apply the algorithm from Brad Felt to the valuation estimate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be really good. And do you think if a startup is asked about their valuation, they would know the value?
Yeah.
And they would be open to share it?
Maybe.
Not
every company, because it's strategic information.
Oh, okay.
But it's the same with revenue. I mean, that's also for these publicly, privately owned companies.
Yeah.
Some of them are really sort of secretive about it because it's competitive advantage.
Maybe I can put it as a question, like if you want, you can.
No, yeah, exactly, and you can say why you want to use it and how you want to use it.
Yeah. I think valuation would be a good.
Yeah, it would be really
because
good.
Because that's how they measure like unicorns, for example.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's how you measure success in a startup ecosystem.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you. I think that would be.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you, Katja. I have a lot of things to.
All right.
To look into.
You're so welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing my my master. It's in my master is called Management of Technology. Right now I'm doing my internship at Startup Delta, so I decided to do my internship here and related with the startup ecosystem in the Netherlands, and yeah, I'm going to use their database. So what my thesis is about, um, I'm going to I'm going to collect data from a sample of startups, and I'm going to deliver them a questionnaire.
Right.
And from the data that I collect, I'm going to try to build a predictive model on their success. So right now what I'm doing, it's interviewing people to give me feedback on that. So for example, I have I have a list of variables. That's what I wanted to show you, but I can read them to you.
Okay.
And yeah, I have a list of a list of input variables. I also have like a list of output variables, so I can the idea is to discuss them. I can tell you the variables that I have right now, both as input and output. And the most important thing is if you come up with a different variable or something that you would say like it would be interesting looking at, that would be very valuable for me.
Yeah.
So I have I'm focusing my model a lot a lot on the people. So like on my questionnaire, I'm going to ask a lot of various questions on the founders of the startups. So one, like I will read you like some of the variables, and yeah, we can discuss the ones that may be like interesting. So for example, one variable is how many founders are they? That's one of the variables.
How many? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, how many founders? So could be one to, I don't know, various founders. Also, yeah, that's like demographic data. So the age of the founders and the genders of the founders. I'm going also to ask about the industry experience, and the industry experience would be like a number of years work of industry experience.
Yeah.
Also management experience, if the same way I would measure it, like number of years. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. The next one, it's entrepreneurial experience. So it's entrepreneurial experience so different from the previous ones. It's not a number. So that one is just like yes or no, or like that's more like if the founder has a previous experience launching a startup.
Right. So the numbers you're going to ask me.
Mm-hmm. Oh no.
So you're. Oh.
No. Those are the variables that I'm going to. So I'm going to put all these things into a questionnaire that I will send to startups here in the Netherlands.
Okay.
Yeah. So my idea is just to discuss like what do you think about these variables. So you would, for example, you can tell me like I wouldn't measure entrepreneurial experience as a yes/no, but maybe as like on a number or this kind of things. That it could be like feedback on the metrics that I'm using for this model.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that one is entrepreneurial experience that I can measure it as a yes/no. So it's like the question to the startups would be something like, do you have any previous experience starting your own business? And then yes or no. Or it can also be like knowledge, like entrepreneurial knowledge. For example, I don't have entrepreneurial experience, but I have entrepreneurial knowledge. Like I have, like I work right now in a startup Delta, so I have learned a lot about business development, and I have a little bit more of knowledge than, so I can also measure that as knowledge. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
I am also looking into the diversity of the teams of the founders. So, for example, looking at the diversity, I mean in terms of country, like if the founders are all here from the Netherlands, or if they have international founders as well.
Okay.
I'm also looking at the education. So one part of the education is the education level. So for example, like in an ordinal scale. So if they like the highest level of education achieved, so like school or bachelor, master, PhD, something like this, or something equivalent. And also looking at the universities. So I plan to connect the universities of the founders to the list of the world ranking by the, what's it called, Corelli Simons. So I can connect that. Another question is if the founder was full time or part time dedicated to the development of the startup. And something important to about all my questions, because I didn't mention it, I'm looking at all the characteristics of the startup and the founders at the very early stages to try to predict, to make a model about the success and later stages. So
All right.
yeah. So I'm not.
So you want to start?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can give me a feedback, would be good. Yeah. And I continue.
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's another variable. Another variable is the risk profile of the founder. So that would be like a 7-point scale, something like from like if I like going from risk averse to risk seeking. That's another one of the questions on my questionnaire. Another question is the motivation for the founder to have a startup. I haven't defined that yet. I know I have some papers that talk about that. So it could be something like I wanted to be like economical independent. I was very passionate about my idea, or I wanted to create an impact. These kind of things. That's one of the variables.
All right.
So all those that I mentioned are about the founders. The other variables that I'm going to mention now are a little bit more a mix of everything. So another one is these variables are at the early stages of the startup, just before they go to the market, and just before they like at the point where they like from the origin to the point where they have like a minimum viable product and they go to the market.
Right.
So, for example, one of my questions would be, which was the size of your team when in this stage? So, like when they were working for the minimum viable product, which was the size of the team? So, the founders plus how many employees did they have at the beginning?
Yeah.
Same in the same way, I would measure diversity and the diversity of the team, and that would be in terms of both genders and international, like different cultures, from genders, cultures, genders, cultures, nationalities. So this would be more like also like a scale, like 1 to 7, like how diverse your team was, something like this. The next one, the next two were I got it from one of my colleagues. One, it's time to market. So how much time did it take to go to the market? So that would be like measured in months. And the other one was how much money was spent to go to market. That's also that would be euros. The other question in my questionnaire, it's the source of funding on those early stages. So if it was crowdfunding or loans or friends and family, own money or subsidies, or like angel or these kind of things on the very early stages.
Okay, I'm not a founder myself, right?
Yeah. But you are. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm interviewing not only founders but people on that are that know about the startup ecosystem.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So the other category, the other one of my other questions is mentorship. If the startup was had a mentorship by accelerators, for example, by accelerators, by an investor or by universities, for example.
Right.
Yeah, if they did a prototype, or if they build a prototype, if they did a business plan, so it could be from a very formal business plan to just like a business plan of like a canvas of one page. One of the things that I got from San Francisco is that they give their equity to employees. So that's one of my questions. If they gave equity to employees on their on those early stages, if they calculated, if they estimated the size of the market as well, like if they were, yeah, that one. Also, if they were like business to business, or if they were business to consumer, to which industry they belong, like to which industry was the startup belongs. Also a bit about the structure of the organization. So that's about if it was like very standardized and hierarchical and formal, or it was more like a flat organization and more like organic.
Right.
Because I'm in the Netherlands, also I would fill out the region they belong to. So these are this is like an overview
I get it.
of the kind of variables that I'm going to check from startups, and what I'm going to measure. That's one of my big like dilemmas, is how to measure that success of startups. So I can measure that by I can estimate like define that in various ways. So one of the ways is asking directly to startups if they have reached profitability. So if they are scaling right now, if they have like exit that early stages of a startup, and they are like exit the value of that and then start scaling. That would be one of my alternatives. It can also look at the size in terms of employee and total funding, and the valuation or the web metrics. And
how many questions do you have?
Like 30.
For me?
Oh,
huh?
No. So for you, it's like if so I'm explaining you like the kind of variables that I'm looking into, and for you, my question is if you have like any proposal of variables that I could look into of the success of startups.
I think you covered it mostly.
I mentioned a lot of things. That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe if you I don't know, if you come up with an idea of a new variable or something, you can also let me know later.
Yeah, I think you have most of the variables.
Okay. And have you ever have you seen like these kind of models? Like they exist, but I don't know. Like, do you know if investors, how do they evaluate the startups? Like when they check the startups, if they are like worth investing or not?
Is that a question?
Yes. Yeah.
What is the question?
Like what do you think? How do you think investors there, for example, in San Francisco, evaluate startups? Like based on what?
Right. Product,
Mm-hmm.
team,
Yeah. So, for example, what
timing.
timing? Okay. How would you define how would they look into that into timing?
Timing is like, why now?
Okay.
Why at this point in time do we need this?
Mm-hmm.
How does it fit in the bigger scheme of things?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
The product, team, timing, the problem they're solving.
Okay. Problem. Yeah.
And why is it the better solution?
Okay. Yeah. That's really those things are really important for me to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like in product, would that would be like if the product is like novel or like something different.
Yeah, unique.
Unique. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Good. Yeah, I think that was one of my questions. And do you know how investors how like they're as well? How do they measure how successful a startup is? Like, do they measure it in terms of the total funding, or how do they measure how big are they are?
Well, performance metrics is is revenue
Okay.
growth, right? Month over month.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really
Does it work as a business? Is it profitable?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that would be it. Yeah, like with those things, I can also think of more variables.
Yeah.
Okay, I would let you. You are driving right now. Like
Huh?
you are on the, how do you say, like on the hands free or?
Yeah, I'm at Stanford
Oh,
at the
okay.
university.
Oh, okay. Then I think that's I won't take more of your time. I think that's enough information.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay, and if
If you have follow up questions, please send them via email if anything comes up.
yeah, thank you, Oliver. And if you have any new idea that maybe you think about, let me know as well.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll do.
Okay.
Good luck, man.
Thank you, Oliver. Bye.
Okay. Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao.
Sure. So my name is Ruben. I work here as an education and program manager at the Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship for about a little over 2 years now. My background is in archaeology, so I have a very different background. But after my studies, I started my own company. I worked at a startup as a tech scout in Amsterdam, focusing on which startups are founded worldwide and what are global trends. I was a guest lecturer in innovation at the Hague Technical University of Applied Sciences, the Hague University of Applied Sciences, where I helped for 6 months a student team with the innovation project. And then I worked at least one more tech startup here in Rotterdam and did traineeship in digital innovation. So that's a bit my background of just trying to figure out what I want to do. And here my job is really on the development of our startup program and strategies, as well as facilitating lessons. So I give lectures for the BAs, for the masters, for startup programs, for any others as well. So
Okay, good. Where did you start? Where did you study archaeology? You're Dutch, right?
Yeah. So I studied in Leiden, my bachelor's, and I did my master's in Durham, in England. And there I did a specialization which was not done in the Netherlands. So that's why, when I came back, I was like, I can start my own company.
Good. Yeah. Can you tell me briefly what the center does?
Sure. So basically, we were founded to bridge the gap between the university and the market, basically. And also because we say that entrepreneurship is not something you learn in the school banks, it's something you learn in the markets. That's why we created this. So we have the campus. We differ from other incubators that none of the startups here are from us. So we have no invested interest in any of the companies. All the companies that are located here are here because they want to do business and they either want connection to the university, the community, or just really have to focus on the mentality of doing business. So we also don't have any maker spaces here. We don't have any production rooms. It's really all focusing on business. So most startups here are still also digital, but not all. There are also some product focused startups. So we then focus, because we're part of the business university, we focus on 3 different components of entrepreneurship. We focus on corporate entrepreneurship. So we have various programs in-house or other for management level, executive education, those kind of things. So we do workshops for Deutsche Bahn and those kind of companies. Okay. We do regular education, so for bachelors, for masters of the Erasmus University, but also other universities. We develop and sometimes facilitate programs on entrepreneurial education, and we do startup programs.
Okay, and what are the startup programs about?
We have the Erasmus Startup Program, which is a 4-week program focusing completely on who's your customer, finding your product market fit.
Oh, okay.
As well, but and then the Erasmus Business Program is 10 weeks and it's completely focused on business model strategy, pricing strategies, revenue, all those kind of things. For us, the entry level for the Erasmus Startup Program is rather low, because we feel it's also important to help people to understand or help young entrepreneurs say, do I want to be an entrepreneur? And just because for us, entrepreneurship is the way that people think. It's entrepreneurial competence, it's not just a company. Yeah. So if that startup program is also already okay, if you have just an idea phase, concept phase, completely fine. If it's innovative, scalable, and you're motivated, you can get in that program in 4 weeks. Is there a customer market? Do I like entrepreneurship? Is it something for me? Those kind of stuff. That's it. Then we have now the Erasmus Business Program, which is an incubation program more, and that's really, you already know those kind of answers, you already know your customers, you already know that you want to be an entrepreneur, and then you really go, I need to make my first sales, I really need to make my first MVP, I need to get an investment, I need to start my marketing, my branding, all those kind of stuff. Okay, good. Yeah, I think your advice would be very helpful on the variables. Nice. Because I have not experienced building a startup, and I still don't understand probably the life cycle. So there is some, So for example, the variables that I have categorized, this is a lot about the founding team. Yeah. So this is you can see how many founders are there, the age, the gender composition. This is industry experience in years, and also if they have management experience, and these are numbers in years. This entrepreneurial experience, if they have any experience building a startup or any company. This if they have an international founding team or not. I'm missing something here. I will just international. Also the university, the education level. This is something that I have to define yet. So this is one of the more soft or vague variables. Connectedness. If I would be able to
measure it directly, I would look like at the LinkedIn connections of the persons. That would be like a
So basically, the social networking.
yeah, like in the professional level. But I cannot do that because I'm going to ask the startups that they are already 3-4 years old. So I want to look at their characteristics in the past.
Okay.
So they can they it's not easy to do that. So I would just ask them like from like 1 to 7 how well connected you were when you like in your early stages. This time dedication is like it's also binary, so like full time or part time when they were the founders. This is a salary before they started their startup. Like if they are risk averse or risk seeking, what is the motivation to have the startup? There is some sources that say which are the different motivations. I haven't checked that yet, but you know which kind of options like make money or be independent or these kind of things. This category, I call it like I just call this in the train like road to MVP. And this is like you can see, for example, here is the team size.
No.
So these are the things that I still have like I would like to discuss with you because I don't know these concepts well. So for example, before you do the MVP, you have like that first hire, like so you have like first the founders, so 2 founders, and then I decide to get like a core team to develop my MVP.
Well, that really differs. Also for us, a founding team, you can only be founding on your own. We don't mind if you you don't need to have a second person. It goes a bit quicker if you're more, but that's it. But for us, we want to. It really, I think, depends on also your definition of MVP. So you can even dumb it down into different versions of kind of prototypes. We want them to, even if they're on their own, before they have any team members, before there any sales has been done, we want to make at least multiple MVPs, so that from there you can get first data. This is more easier with digital startups than with high technology startups, but still even they can make certain kind of prototypes, even only one or 2, with which they can already do some testing to get ideas, because it's not about technology, it's about solutions. So the solution is multi-component. So we would say it would be interesting to see if team size matters, but for us, we want to push them in that direction as soon as possible. So first, as soon as you can make those MVPs, because only then if you can make sales, then you can get your expansion of your team. So that's something we always say, go for that as quick as possible. Yeah,
for me that MVP would be the point where they are like they start like a market, they started selling and launching their product.
But also that's so then if you actually really go into the first sales, it really depends on how, like for us, we say MVP is already, if you have your broad solution, if you only take one component, you can already make an MVP of that, or make the core thing. Really depending on what you have, you can either do it already with 1 or 2. Start doing that, and only if that's working, then go looking for investments for funding or anything like that. So for me, team size, I don't think that's necessarily requirement for you to actually be working towards an MVP. You need to have your MVP before that. Really.
Yeah, definitely. It can be like team size could be like just a founder or the 2 founders, for example, up to 10 persons, something like that. And if they have like if they hire people for that team, then I also measure like the diversity, like in that diversity is in terms of like background, international, this kind of thing, how diverse they perceived their team. This would be this is something I discussed yesterday with some of my colleagues. Time to market would be how much is the time from when they started until they did their first sales.
And that's information you want to get from them, or
that's information that they would input on my questionnaire. Similar to this one, like how much was their expense and that expense for the before they enter to sell. This is like a different category, so which was the funding source, if they got it from friends or family, if they got it from loans, subsidies, crowdfunding, their own money. Mentorship, if they counted with a mentorship from accelerators, from university and other options. So this one was this is like for me a previous step before the MVP. If sometimes I depend if it's like a platform or like something high tech, you do a prototype or not.
So indeed those are different, like you normally first go for proof of concept or prototype before you actually go to the MVP. But also in literature those terminologies all mingled up. So,
Yeah.
but also even then, it really then depends on how much. Also, what kind of startup do you have and what kind of MVP you can make. But other than these look good, all right.
Mm-hmm. Also, like if they do like this one is also something that I still don't have clear. So my idea there is like to ask if they did have like a formal business plan. Do all the startups do that? Or
we tell them not to.
Okay.
To be honest, we tell them to focus on business modeling. So basically, business plan is really you do some research and then you spend weeks to months writing the business plan and then you publish and then you go get some money. Usually they start with that, but then what we say, forget about that. That's something you eventually need to do when you go for a startup visa or when you actually go for a bank loan.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, make a business model, because if you set some business plan, it takes a long time, and then it's more set in stone. The business model you can make in 1 hour, basically, and then you can immediately go testing. If it's wrong, you change it. That's fine. Okay. And that is what then also it maps out better what all assumptions that you have and what sectors that you have them of your business model.
How is the business model? Like how is it like one page or something?
Yeah.
Like
Also,
that?
basically, you can Google it. It's like you have the business model canvas.
Oh, I know, like the one that is. Like
with the 9 with the 9 blocks. So basically that's what we tell them to do. Focus just on that.
Oh, okay.
Because that gives you the insights that you need much more quickly, and it I think goes a little more faster. But still, eventually, if you want to engage with more formal institutes, then eventually they would indeed want to see a business plan. But we would say don't write that until you're really at the stage, until you have done all your startup validation, until you have maybe already done your first sales or anything like that. Yeah. Only then write a business plan.
Good. And it would be interesting to see how that relates. Yeah. This is another decision that I saw if they gave equity to the employees at the beginning. This one if they estimated the size of their market of
the TAM is the market or
it's a total addressable market.
Okay.
This one is kind of similar if they forecasted their demand. Customer geography. I saw this in one paper. Is if your first customers, if they have one of their first customers like very local or outside of that 50 kilometers radius.
Well, what we always say is if you cannot make it locally, you cannot make it somewhere else. So basically, but that's more
start locally.
Yeah. So but that's more really for. Like for digital ones, it's a little bit different, but especially for all, especially in the early phase, because we focus mostly on the early phase, is with everything customers go outside talk to people. Really, it's that easy. If you want to do something with events or anything, try to do it locally. If that doesn't work, why should you be able to do it somewhere else? So really, first we always say, try to go out and interact with your customer as soon as possible, as quick as possible, and validate. And for that to do it, just literally walk outside and start talking to people.
Okay, good. Okay, understand that one. Another one is like the early popularity in terms of the web page visits.
What you I think really need to, or maybe it differs from us, but we think about stuff, right? So all these things are also for different stages. So website visits, that's
I would measure that like in that stage. Like all those questions are in that early stage before they go to market.
Yeah, but then also that that can be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then even web page visits. When they start and they start a website, it's very different than maybe when they're already at the market. So even then, I would be really. I would have a thought about so how I'm going to measure changes in websites, because the area before or the phase before they go to the market, can be a very broad and diverse phase. So also with regards to actually to employers or forecasting demand, stuff like that. It really depends, on if this what kind of training they have had, what kind of startup they have, if that's the first thing they think about or not, or if that's something that only gets into in
later stages.
Later, even before they still go to market, but even the stage before they go to market is divided into various levels, basically. So that's something I think you really need to think about with this, is seeing is if you can maybe how you can deal with that. Also with the time frame that you're focusing on, and what basically the disinformation in which where it falls, basically.
Right? Okay, I understand. This one that I have in gray here is competition. That it's I haven't thought about that one yet. Like is it possible to ask like how when you start like you perceive like how many competitors we have?
Yeah. Well, what we always tell them is competition is great because they do stuff wrong that you don't have to do wrong. So we always tell people look up competition.
Okay.
Do competition and competitor analysis. Not only on what they do, but also on the whole brand, their verbal identity stuff, visual identity stuff like that. So that you can map that out. If somebody says we don't have a competitor, I don't believe them.
Oh, okay. So they can answer like how many competitors
they should. If they know what they're doing, they should.
Okay.
Then they always should know who the competitors are. Otherwise, they're not doing it right.
Okay, good. Thank you. This one is about like if they perceive their product to be like an incremental innovation or like very radical. Yeah.
For that, do you also plan to put in like descriptions of what you mean with this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if everybody would understand.
Yeah, like this concept, or like for example, market pull and technology.
No, definitely.
Market pull and technology push. Yeah, this one also it's so you know these concepts like this.
Yeah, well, I know the push and pull, but so I can say what they're.
Yeah, this one is, for example, also more big, but it's like if the technology in that time was like more forced by the needs of the market, or their idea or their product was more driven by the needs of the market, or because they had like a really good idea technologically, and they just wanted to push.
Fair enough.
Not this one. B2B versus B2C. This is like the degree of tech, because like we also have at Startup Delta this that dilemma of like there is startups that are just like the users of technology, and there is others that are like high tech and they develop high tech.
Yeah.
So this would be like on a great scale. How do they locate themselves?
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah. All right.
Yep. Industry would be the industry. Yeah. Business model.
And which industries are you gonna?
Look at?
Yeah. So, because are you gonna ask them, or which kind of categories are you gonna?
Yeah, I have a list of categories according to the Startup Delta deal room categories. But I haven't put them there. But yeah, I have the categories fixed, so they select from there. Business model as well. So Guild Room and the Startup Delta database, they have like this. I still don't understand that well, so maybe you can. I don't have. Do you have the password?
Yeah, it's you can just log on the guest one, then it should just go online.
No. Right. Let me go this online. Yeah. So these are the ones that they have listed. So I'm not familiar. No, I'm not entirely familiar with them. So I'm not sure. Like, what do you think about that categorization?
For business models. Yeah. So basically, subscription is really like a subscription model. Like you pay every month, or you pay every certain period of time. Manufacturing, I think it's basically if I manufacture something for you, you just pay for it. Software as a service.
Could be, yeah.
It's like a subscription, to be honest.
Yeah.
Commission is we just percentage off. Like basically Airbnb and Uber, they take commissions off. Yeah. Marketplace is like they also work together with commission to be honest. Because Airbnb is also kind of marketplace. Yeah. Freemium usually go together with premium. So basically Skype is freemium, but Skype for Business premium. So you have a free version that you can start with, paid, but then that's like a subset, and then from there you can go to a paid version. Okay. E-commerce is like a platform, but it's like an online marketplace. So content.
I don't know what is content.
Content, that's really more if you're a social media marketing company that you write content for somebody else. but that's
okay.
not really much
but
used. So
you-
that's why
you
they
wouldn't include that
Yeah,
one.
mobile app, that's basically everything.
Yeah.
So that's, and you normally don't really make money only with in advertising or
Yeah.
in like or micro payments within apps. So that's the
Yeah.
so this is definitely a weird one.
Yeah.
Advertising, that's again something you can combine with marketplace, with freemium. Usually if you're freemium,
Yeah.
there's advertisement in there, but if you're premium, you don't have advertisement. All that kind of stuff. So, but I think what they mean is for mostly true only advertisement models.
Yeah.
Pay per result. It's kind of like commission, but then instead of just taking a piece of every transaction that's made, you say I only take you only pay me an X amount if we actually deliver a result, which kind of is the same as commission based, but then with different prices. So,
Okay. Yeah.
But so a lot of them is an agency. Can you go? Oh, this.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Agency. I think that's probably like you have in the Netherlands. You have a lot of the in between agencies, like for workers and stuff like that. That you pay an agency and you get maybe work for a week or for a month or stuff like that. But then you pay an agency an X amount and.
Yeah.
So I think that's something like that. But also with that, it's
They overlap a lot and
yeah, but it's not one of the most.
determine like
Also it's
critical
not
factors.
most known business models. Like I would focus more indeed on software as a service, but that is that the business model, or is that just? I would say some service is a good one. Premium is a known one.
Oh, okay.
You have the razor blade model, which is basically what every razor blade to sell you the handle, but then you have to pay for all the knives. That's one.
Yeah.
Manufacturing subscription, those are indeed ones.
Okay.
Advertisement is indeed one, but then you can combine it with others. But so I would focus more what's the main main ones. Advertisement can then be one.
Okay.
Pay per result, is
Good. Yeah.
similar as maybe have a look into other what
Other-
generic business models there are.
Yeah. We'll
'cause
look at
there-
different sources, which categories
Yeah.
they use. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Thank you. I learned. Yeah. I had a lot of doubts about those.
Yeah, no, that I'm about some as well.
Yeah. Yeah, this one is, for example, if the company is like very hierarchical and formalized and a lot of procedures versus flat and that. So how do they perceive that?
Maybe it would be good to see if you can maybe describe it a bit different, because my assumption will be that something you could test.
That everyone would say it's organic?
Yeah, then 9 out of 10 will say, oh no, we're so lean, it's organic.
Yeah,
this
that
is
we
what
have
we
like
do.
a cool culture. And
But then the question is like, are they really a cool
Yeah, like
are they really
relaxed
that
culture.
is it really? So I would definitely have a look at that.
But it could be very biased.
Yeah, I think my assumption is it will be very, very biased.
Okay.
Have a look at that.
Yeah,
one.
because some of the one of the sites is negative. It's commonly perceived as negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe you can indeed not put it like this, but just ask some other questions about organization structure, and based on that you can make your own assessment of is it organic or not.
Yeah.
So that's something you could do. But because this, I think you will not have any good results.
Yeah, sure. This is about the legal structure. Yep. I'm not sure which are the legal structure in the Netherlands. I will have to research.
Yeah, well, you look into BV, VOF, but also with that, like legal structure in the Netherlands, what usually happens is you have at least with VOFs, I think, you have personal holdings and you have another holding, then you have the company underneath it. But we always say if you have a technology, put it in company A. If you have, but the company that has the technology is not the company who does the selling, basically, so that if one goes broke, you never have the technology. Yeah. So usually the company structures is very branched. Yeah. And then from the front it looks like it's one company, but usually there are different kind of legal structures around it.
Oh, okay.
But otherwise there's always the VOF or the BV that you would get, or the NV sometimes even. But
I'll search about
so
it.
have indeed look, because that's mainly in the Netherlands. So, and from what I've heard, that in other countries they're not so keen on breaking everything down so much, but in the Netherlands it's really like that. So.
Yeah. Okay. This one is something that I added yesterday, talking from one of my colleagues. I haven't defined that yet. It's about the culture, because he said that one of the most important things that he found was that the culture of the company.
So what do you mean with culture?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I have
Yeah.
to search about.
So guys, also with that one, really, especially with also with the first one.
Yeah, with the mechanic versus
Yeah,
mechanic.
what is it called? Like, what does it mean? Like,
Yeah.
it sounds so. Sure, you have to define, but
Yeah.
it can seem like something that can sound very fake.
Yeah, definitely. I will search on that one.
Cool.
Region is just also a region of the Netherlands.
Mhm.
Yeah, like different, the 13 regions, I think there are
12.
11, 12, yeah. And this is the last part that it's also one of the most critical, is how I measure that, how I'm going to evaluate that success, and at which stage of the life cycle of the startup. So there is various papers that they do that, and they do it at different stages. So some of them they evaluate if they reach a certain round. So if they reach a B, C, D round, or if they reach an exit. That would be like a yes, no. Yeah.
But is this then with this, which series they have before they go to the market, or
No,
also
that would be
after?
the prediction. That would
Okay.
be, because all the startups that I will send the questionnaires to, they would be above 3 or above 5 years old.
Yeah, so they already are on the market.
Yeah, they already are
Yeah.
in the market.
But then is this something that they will fill in, or is it something that you will send them?
They will fill in.
They will fill in, but do you want them to say, all right, so when I went to the market, I was on level Series A or level B or D?
No, like in this moment, like have you reached your Series
Okay.
A, or have you, like, which is your latest stage?
All right, and how? But maybe just how does that? Will that connect? Basically, all this other stuff is looking back in the past, but this is current. So how does that connect to each other?
Yeah, all the previous ones would be like the predictors. All those would be the inputs, and
Okay.
these would be the output. So I will train my model based on
Okay,
that.
cool.
Yeah. So I can ask, like, which was your later stage of funding, or how would you size
alright.
yourself? It could be in based on this. It can also be numerical, so it could be things like these two or these two. So it could be total funding. I have that data from them. I have the data from the employees. I don't have this data. I would probably have to ask the companies.
But also
It's big.
well, not so much. But there are I think 5 or 6 different ways on which you can evaluate the company.
Okay.
So-
I have no idea about that.
Yeah, so there are different ways on how to evaluate a company, all of which will give you a number, all of which will basically give you a different number.
Oh, okay.
So maybe you can also add in a question, all right, your evaluation is based on which model.
Okay.
So that you can have a look at that as well. So, because otherwise you'll get numbers, but
And is it possible to make myself the based on those models, the valuation if I have other data?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, to
Based
be
on
honest,
the
we did-
funding.
yeah. So I'm not actually sure. Like every model uses different kind of data. There's always a bit about your market and stuff like that. So have a look at in that business valuation models. There are
Okay.
multiple.
Yeah.
But would be really interesting for this to know, because otherwise you don't know.
Yeah.
You have numbers, but what do they say? Like,
Yeah.
Because there's not, I think, one correct way of doing valuations. There are just different kind of ways of doing valuations based on different data that there
Okay.
is.
Good.
So they look into that one as well.
Okay. Good. And also like the web statistics, web visits in that point of time, like
Cool.
nowadays. And this one is also other papers does it. They ask if they have already, but this is like more earlier, like if they have already achieved like profitability and they are not like cash flow positive. So I guess this is like earlier, because
Well-
not early stages, but like
But also for that, like Spotify, is Uber,
Yeah.
Twitter, they're still not making profit.
yeah, true.
So I would more be interested. Yeah. So it would see if that profit is the number that you want, or when do they break even, if that's the number that you want, like
Okay.
to get more information about. Because not getting profit might be a business strategy as well.
Yeah, true. Okay.
So
Good. Yeah. Those would be my variables, and
Cool.
I don't know if you have any variable that you can comes to your mind that you would say like, oh, it would be interesting to look into these.
not really. I think you've covered most. Amount of pivots, that would be very interesting.
Amount of pivots.
Yeah,
Okay.
so basically, if they even know, because the research has already shown, there was like an Italian research, I think it came out 1.5 years ago, that has shown that companies who have done the most pivots are more successful because they're better aligned with the market.
Okay, so I kind of know, like, if people start the iterations they have from like which point to which point.
Yeah, no, pivots are basically, it means that did you had to change your business model completely or anything, or your idea completely? So basically, did you have to change your solution based on what you get from the market?
Oh, okay.
So companies who don't do it usually either spend a lot of money on marketing.
They are
and
more stubborn.
Yeah. So and they usually either go slower or they fail because they don't know what their customer wants.
Okay.
But if the more you pivot, you better know, okay, what does my customer want, and then usually they buy it quicker.
Okay.
So pivots is really, and that to find it out is really what you do through the build, measure, learn. But the idea is really, did I have to change my business model or not, or did I have to change my solution based on the assumptions that I tested?
Okay, and this happens at which stage? Like any
It
stage.
should be at any stage, but you should do most in the early stages.
Okay.
When you're really trying to get your product market fit, your business model fit.
If you ask a scale-up founder about their like, they can ask like how many people they did, like how many people you did.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and maybe if they're only Dutch, you can maybe have a short explanation about what defines a pivot, basically.
Yeah.
Ask them.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. And then maybe I took some notes at the beginning. What you say, pricing strategy. Yeah, like. Okay, what is the pricing strategy? Like, which are there categories for that, or that's the revenue model, or what?
Revenue models are different than business models.
Yeah.
So business models really, how does my business work? Revenue models are only about how do I get my money. So there's a difference in that, and pricing is connected with that. But even that, there's this pricing strategy is all about subscription, about those kind of things. So you can have a look in that, but otherwise, we always say there's something you have to find out as well.
Okay.
That there's no one perfect pricing strategy or anything.
Okay, and that product market fit that happens in which point?
As soon as possible.
Okay, and like that's when you.
That's the early
stage. How do you know that happened?
So basically how we do it is we first let them identify the problem, then talk about the solution, see if that matches, and it only matches if they've talked to an X amount of customers, at least face to face, and most of those customers have agreed that the problem is there and that solution that's being pitched is something that they would want. But not only that, but also if they then leave maybe credentials like credit card, email addresses, anything like that, so then you can use it. And the product market fit, you can only say that you have it if you're already indeed selling, and you can scale that. But so product market fit is really with the solution that I have and the market that I'm focusing on, does it match? And the only really way to validate that if money is being transferred.
Okay, so you can also, like you say, that they search for customers before, like as an initial stage.
Yes, so for us, the first thing you do immediately is look for your customers.
So you can ask like how many customers, potential customers you reach at the beginning.
Yep. So we say, don't start building anything, don't do anything ridiculously expensive like that. First, identify customers, talk to them first. Only then you will know what to build.
Yeah.
So even if you already have technology, it's fine, but your technology is not your solution. Your technology is a part of your solution, so it's perfectly fine that you have one, but don't work on that until you know what solution is wanted by your potential customers.
Okay, good. And last question, you also mentioned that when you look at the startups, you were seeing if they were innovative and scalable, that you evaluated as more as in a qualitative way, or?
No, to be honest, that's just really what I think. So we don't, at the moment, we don't have any metrics for that. Yeah. Because innovative is very vague in itself. So for me, innovative is something new, brand newish. Is something old which is done in a new way that can be innovative as well. Okay. It really depends also, because I also do the selection, on have they thought about it. So if somebody says, I'm having a solution and it's new is because we have blockchain, it's like, it doesn't need blockchain. If the answer is no, then it's not innovative, I'm not going to help you. So that's it. So that's also with scalable, like why we think it's scalable is because all the things that we do, we don't want to help, or we cannot help consultants because we're really focusing on going to the market as quickly as possible, growing as quickly as possible. And if you're a consultant, then the knowledge of value proposition is really tied to you. Okay. I don't want the value proposition to be tied to you. I want it to be in your company, and that's what we can help. And you as an entrepreneur need to make that happen. So those are the things that we're going to, but it really depends.
Okay.
It also depends how many times have I heard this idea before, which can also be quite a lot. What do I know about the market itself? And if somebody pitches a nice idea, well, I know that there are already 10 other companies who kind of do this or are doing it, and they cannot answer me what the difference is between what they do or the real innovative edge between what they do and the others. Then I'm like, yeah, so why would I help you?
Okay.
So that's really just based on my experience, knowledge, and my field.
Good. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I think that's it.
Cool, no worries.
Yeah.
So thank you for stopping by and doing this. Yeah, definitely. And when do you expect the results to be in? Okay, sure.
I will let you know.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very curious to see the results out of it.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good day. Have a good night.
Yeah. That was the way.
Yeah.
Because I record your voice, my university requires me to sign you something. So you mind?
I
Yeah?
have to sign something.
Yeah.
Release my permission.
That is like confidential. Well, not all my classmates do this, but
This is so funny.
I know it looks too formal.
Look at this. Wow, this is very serious.
But I did it's not that serious, but they require
It'll
it
last
anyway.
no more than 20 minutes. All right, if you go to 21,
well-
this contract is void.
Now we are in a different setting to what I usually have my interviews.
Yeah, well, we're having a little bit of wine with it, so.
Yeah. Also write my name.
It's very serious. I've
Which day is today?
I don't think any startups ever sign contracts unless it's to get money.
Yeah. No, it's just my.
I know, it makes sense. They want to make sure you're.
And it's not only that. Like we have the thing is that my master, it's called Management of Technology,
Okay.
and there is a branch of them that it's. There is a big branch on responsible innovation
Okay.
and ethics. So there is like a lot of professors
Yeah,
that
yeah.
study ethics.
Yeah.
So they have a committee.
It's very important. Yeah.
Their committees really demand, like they really require us to do that, because I'm sure
No, it's good.
if that committee didn't exist,
Yeah.
no one would care about it.
No, it's smart. I'm glad that I'm glad it's that way and not the other way. So.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And because I guess I have some classmates that really have to collect like sensitive data or this kind of
Sure.
thing.
Sure.
Not
Yeah.
my case, don't worry.
I'm an open book. I have nothing to hide.
Yeah. You can you tell me a little bit about you?
Yeah, so, well, I guess in terms of what's related to you is probably the most important. So, I lived in San Francisco for the last few years, but before that I was in Boulder, Colorado, which is also kind of known as a mini Silicon Valley in the Rocky Mountains. So I've always been self-employed since I was 24, so really since after college and after my master's. I decided not to pursue psychology as my background, but I decided not to pursue psychology, and I went straight into real estate. And then from real estate and running my own real estate company, I went into forming a tech company that allowed people to buy and sell homes online without agents or commissions. So that was probably 2013 was the first idea of it, and then it went live in 2015, and I raised money from venture capitalists and angel rounds. And then we didn't end up raising our last round, which was fine. It crashed and burned, and in startup worlds, if you know anything about startup world, we love it when things fail.
Okay.
So failure is a great thing because you learn so much. So that is really the whole mentality behind startups. I went through a tech accelerator in Boulder, and then that got me launched into the tech world. And then I moved to San Francisco, and I worked as a first sales hire for some YC companies as well as some Techstars companies. So that was 2016 to last year, and then I decided I'm much better off being self-employed and starting my own businesses. So I traveled around, didn't know what I wanted to do next, and I landed here and fell in love with Amsterdam and started my business here in March, and it's been profitable since day one, and so I call it my lifestyle business rather than a high-tech business. And then on the side, I'm an advisor for some tech companies, and I also mentor for Techstars here, Techstars Amsterdam.
Okay.
So they just finished their first class here. It was partnered with Arcadis.
Star is an accelerator. Okay.
It's one of the best in the world, along
I've seen it. Yeah.
Y Combinator and Techstars are the same level. Techstars has a great motto, which I love, and their community is amazing. It's called Give First. So everything really revolves around how we grow together when we can actually help and support and collaborate together. So it's very much once you're in the community, it's very much like it's the best way to grow, and you can go international and meet people who went through Techstars and immediately have like a friend base and connections and business base. So it's pretty cool.
Okay. So you have your company now.
Yes.
Here.
Yeah.
And you are advising.
For other companies, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before this one, you had one in back in Colorado.
Yeah, this is my fifth company now.
Fifth?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
I started. My first was going out on my own as a real estate entrepreneur, and then I started a company that was the first tech company, and then the last two companies I was with, I was a founding member, and so I helped them set up all of their sales and business development from day one.
So that what founding member? What does that mean? Like you're not.
That means I'm like the first five or so.
First five.
Yeah, so it's like ones who set up all the foundations, work very closely with the board as well as the CEO, and make sure that everything's set up is going to launch them off into success for the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, my thesis is about predicting the success of startups in the Netherlands. I want to do a model on that.
Predicting the success?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. Yeah, that sounds.
No, it's
I know it's crazy. It's
no,
like
it's good.
difficult.
That's very good.
So what I want to do with the interviews is exactly that, like discuss. I know that there is a lot of, like the attributes that make a startup successful. A lot of them are very qualitative and very.
Yeah.
En de Chardonnay? Ja. Oh, sorry.
Dankjewel.
Dank je wel. Okay, cheers.
Cheers, Prost, Salud.
Do you like it?
Yeah, actually. Do you want to try some? It's not.
You want to try mine?
I mean, I think I've had Chardonnay.
Oh, I like this one more.
Yeah, I decided to go out on a limb and try it. It was a good risk to take. Yeah.
And what I was saying? Yeah, there is a lot of qualitative attributes that make a startup successful.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I take some like I have a list of variables that I'm going to collect from startups here in the Netherlands.
Sure.
I have a list of 30 or 40 variables that I want to measure.
Okay. That's a lot of variables.
Yeah, I have to filter that a little bit, maybe to 30, 20. And then I'm going to collect the data with questionnaires.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm doing my thesis at TU Delft, but I'm also doing my internship at Startup Delta. You know Startup Delta? Startup Delta, it's how do you define that? It's like financed by the government, but it's not a governmental institution.
That's pretty cool.
So the government gives us all the funding.
Well, that's really nice.
Yeah, that's because like our main sponsor is the Prince Constantine. You know him?
No, not personally.
Yeah, but you know who he is?
Yes.
I didn't know who he was until I started working there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we receive funding for that.
Very cool.
And the goal of Startup Delta is to help the startup ecosystem in the Netherlands to grow and to strengthen it and connect it.
Very cool.
So far, those goals for Startup Delta are still a bit vague.
Okay.
Now this year they're going to transition into a larger stage, so they got more funding, and I think one of their main goals is that they want to help like the top not top performing, but the top most likely to perform.
Most potential.
Yeah.
Got it.
They want to help those startups to grow.
Very cool.
Yeah, like by connecting them with investors, by taking them out to events, international events.
Are there any cool companies in there now that you like, or?
We haven't defined the top.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we have to do in the next months. So that's one of the, because everyone always discuss like how to define that, how to select those startups, and that's also what part of my thesis tried to.
Yeah.
Like I face the same problem.
Okay.
Yeah, like how to evaluate those startups.
Yeah.
So my thesis is about taking those data that I take about the founding team, about the founders, about the founding team, about the organization, and then try to measure that success.
Yeah.
And there is a various way you can define that success. You can always argue. It can always be argued something against that measure of success.
Yeah.
So, for example, for me, what I would like to measure, but I can't because I don't have access to that data, is the finance data, like the revenue data.
Private. Yeah.
And not a lot of people would be open to share it. So some studies that I've read before, they just ask directly, like, not the numbers, but just like if they're like profitable right now.
Yeah.
So they ask directly as a measure of like yes, no.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah. And my other measure is just to make an estimate on this, like on the size. Like to define success as a measure, like I said, continuous variable of size based on employees or like total funding, or like estimated valuation and these kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now that I know, because I didn't have a sort of look at your profile in LinkedIn. Now that I know that you have started, like you have had your own companies, and you know about a lot about accelerators. I'm also curious about how do they, like when a startup goes to an accelerator, how do they evaluate if it's worth investing in, or like worth, how do you say, accepting it?
Yeah.
How do they define that? And also, how do they define if it's a startup or not? Like, because we had this discussion today at work, that they wanted to put inside our database to companies that I said, like, I don't think that's a startup. But then it's...
I mean, every accelerator is really different, right? Like Y Combinator and Techstars, and then I went through one called Boomtown. It was in Boulder. And there's so many different startups, right? There's like Startup Bootcamp and things like that. There's so many different accelerators. But generally, I would say a startup ranges from either a concept, but the team has proven to be successful either in the past, or the team is just really solid. And that's something that is kind of intangible to measure.
How does it work? There is a committee that discuss that? Like...
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So when you go into, like, be accepted into an accelerator, you usually have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 interviews. So usually the first one is like a video interview with you and the team. Most accelerators will not accept a sole founding.
Not one.
So you have to have at least a co-founder at the very minimum. Some have had a team for 3 or 4 years and have revenue of $300,000 a year. Some are at a concept stage, but they really love the team.
Yeah.
So it really depends. Some people can be very early and have not figured out their revenue model whatsoever and have more room to pivot throughout the whole process. Because accelerators typically last 3-4 months, right? A little bit different than an incubator.
So what is the difference there?
So an incubator, from what I've learned, is more one that will grow with the team over like a year or 6 months. It's a little bit longer, and they help them almost come up with an idea. They don't necessarily go in pitching an idea or go in with a mindset. It's almost like a more expansive MBA, I guess, in some sense. But not to say going through the accelerator myself was like a mini MBA as well. I didn't know really anything about business before I went in, so it taught me everything from venture capital, fundraising, creating a deck, creating a pitch, pitching to investor, everything that you need to know about starting a company or getting funding. So I think the question is not super easy to answer because there is so many different variables, and it does depend on who's interviewing, right? So my interview process in going through an accelerator, and I know Techstars is very similar, is that you do a video and then you obviously fill out their form online and you present that. I think Techstars for every accelerator gets around 1,000, and they have about 1,000 applicants.
So they have 1,000 applicants, and they filter some of them to the video interview, or they video interview all of them?
No, they filter. So
do you know how do they filter that?
Usually it's just based on idea at that point, concept, and you can tell pretty quickly if it seems to have traction. It really depends. So Techstars has like many different variables, right? So they have a healthcare sector. They have this one was called the City of 2030. So it was all based on future smart cities.
Which one, like yours? Or?
The one that I was mentoring at. So that one is all focused focused on what's going to be the best for us as humanity in the city of 2030. What does that look like? So it had anything from like a co-living space, a co-living software platform. It had urban data, meaning we could be able to see everybody and where they're going and the movement and how that affects businesses and how to drive more revenue towards businesses or government or things like that. So there was a lot of things that are going on that's really hot right now are obviously AI and machine learning. So people really like that, or blockchain, right? So those are like the biggest things that people look for in terms of, do they know their stuff? Do they know their space? So usually what they look at in the very first stage is like your LinkedIn profile, who you are, if you have a co-founder, and then they probably look mostly at your dynamics because you do record a video with your co-founders. So they probably look at and just go based off gut if these people seem like they work well together or not.
For example, these technologies that you mentioned that are very like popular, is it like AI, big data, IoT, these kind of things.
Yeah.
Is there someone like on the committees, are those persons that evaluate, they have like a technical background?
Usually, yeah. So typically there's like at least 4 or 5 different people trying to decide your fate if you get in or not. And they usually either have like finance, VC background, or they've managed a lot of startups, or they've just done this a long time and they've been in the startup world, so they can tell immediately. Because it's just like any field, once you've been in it for so long, you can tell immediately if that idea is good or not good, and if they've thought it through. And then I think they look mostly at chemistry. Honestly, Techstars is all about team. So they're all about team.
Okay.
How do they feel about the team? Because they do believe that if you have a solid team, if you have a solid ability to work together, and there's chemistry, and you have a background to support that, you should be able to do anything that you want.
And what would be like a solid team?
Yeah, that's a hard one to define.
I am also intrigued that like extroversion would be correlated with the success of someone getting into an accelerator.
I mean, maybe one of the team members should be pretty extroverted. Like the one that I'm advising now, they went through this accelerator, and we always say Beto is the founder, and we always say that Beto is going to be the president of the United States because of his personality. So yes, there is that, but also these guys have known each other since they were 15. So you can tell immediately, like, they know how to work well together. They don't step on each other's toes. They have a lot of respect for each other. Because sadly what happens in startup world is if you don't have the right chemistry, one, it can really delay your progress. It can make you not work well together. You have to have a trusting relationship, almost like a marriage.
Yeah, that's something I really got from my visit to San Francisco about that.
Yeah.
Those relationships based on trust are the most important things.
Because it can be a very high-stress thing, right? Because if someone's putting hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars into your business, you need to be able to deliver on what you're saying you're going to deliver, right? So if you need to grow at least 20 or 50% month over month in terms of revenue, you need to make sure and trust that the other person is doing their job to keep up that end of the bargain. And if they're not, then you can literally ruin a company by doing that, right? And then your investors are not happy, and then it probably doesn't make you be very successful in the future trying to raise more money from them for a different idea, right? So it does all come down to relationships, I think, in startups. That's what I would say is the biggest defining factor.
Okay. And some questions that come to my mind, like, is it necessary for the founders to have a strong background on where they are, on the idea they have? I'm thinking right now on my roommate. He has a startup that's on data, but I don't see that any of the founders have any background on data.
I don't think so, because no.
That is not necessary.
No. If you think about some of the best entrepreneurs in the world, I don't think Elon Musk knew anything about solar energy.
Yeah.
I don't think he knew anything about cars. He just figured it out, right? So I think that the best entrepreneurs are those that can learn and put it all to make all the dots come together. And actually, in fact, I think some of the best, most successful CEOs of startups that have now grown into bigger companies are those that weren't like Sarah Blakely of Spanx. She was never in the fashion industry. She sold fax machines, and now she's one of the most. I think she's the richest female self-made entrepreneur. She's worth billions of dollars. I think she's right up there with Oprah. So she's done an amazing job and had no background in fashion. So I think those that actually don't have that background are able to see outside the box a little bit more. Sometimes it can box you in, being too much of a professional in one area.
Okay.
As long as you're willing to learn. That's something investors really look for too. They want to make sure it's a two-way conversation.
Yeah, I'm really interested in those all those information. I would love to have my startup one day as well.
Good, you should.
Yeah.
You'll never regret trying.
Yeah.
You'll never regret it.
Is it possible to have launch a startup and does it have to be everything in your life at the time?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes it becomes that because you get almost mildly obsessed with it, right? You get very excited. Like my first like tech startup, which was Side Door, and it was the first online platform I built. I was obsessed with it because I loved it. It was because I wanted it to succeed. So it was like I would wake up thinking about, I would dream about ideas and wake up like writing them down. I think for 2 years straight, that's all I thought about. But it was because I was so motivated to learn. So I think it just all comes down to what's your motivation. But now, like my lifestyle business now is just based off everything I've learned, and it's pretty relaxed. And I work like 20, 30 hours a week and doing pretty good. So it's like now I'm at this point where I'm like, it's okay. I'm not too worried about it.
My roommate has also similar lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the other question I was going to ask? Okay, how would you evaluate a start, like, or when you have your own business, like, based on your goals, or like when do you know that you have, like, of course it's always possible to grow more and to be bigger and to be better, but how would you define that threshold on being like successful or not?
I mean, I think success depends based on the person, right?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, maybe not for the person, but maybe from investors' point of view.
From an investor's point of view, probably giving them a 10x return on their money and IPOing.
Oh, okay. Like reaching an exit.
That's usually that's what they consider a successful exit. Being able to IPO.
Okay, but there is a lot of exits that are like mergers and acquisitions, right?
There's what?
There's a lot of exits that they get acquired.
Yeah, there's acquired and then there's acquired to hire, right? So
acquired to hire?
Yeah, so acquired means you take in the business under your wing. Usually you don't keep many people on that started that business, and you just bring it in. So Oracle does this a lot, where Oracle and Google will acquire startups and then bring them in and adopt their tech. Pretty much they just pay for the technology and then they evolve it. Whereas an acquire to hire is where they acquire you, but then they allow you to keep running your business the way you have and keep your team.
Okay.
So I have a acquaintance. Someone say friend. I have an acquaintance right now, and she has a business. And I'll be very frank with you, as I was with her. I didn't think her business is at the very most going to maybe produce revenue of $1 million a year. That's not a venture-backed business, and that's at like the very most, right? But she thinks it's a venture-backed business, but it's not.
And how do you? That's one of the questions that I was having this morning as well. How do you know if it's venture-backed?
You can look at their customer base, right? So you can look at their total customer base. She had a total customer base of maybe a couple hundred people, and they were all going to pay about $10.99 a month. So I could do the math very quickly. I was like, if your customer base is only 500 potential customers in the whole world.
Oh, but those are the potential customers.
Yeah, but she won't get all of those, right?
Oh, okay.
At the very most, you get like 2 to 10%.
Why was it that small? Because it was very focused niche.
Yeah, it was almost too neat. I would consider her what we would call a lifestyle business, right? It might be a business that could take in a couple 100,000 a year to $1 million a year. Maybe you have 2 or 3 or 4 employees, but you really are you pay yourself a 6-figure salary, but that's it, right? So she just didn't have a business, in my opinion, that was venture backed. But she went through an accelerator, and she got money, and they believed in her. And now she was presented with a deal from a company to buy her, acquire to hire, for $2 million. And I'm like, that's going to be the best you'll ever get in your life. I was like, you have no business here. But she doesn't know it because it's her first venture business.
Okay.
So she thinks it has legs, but it doesn't.
Okay.
So that's a whole different story. But you have to be very honest too. I think the only way I've ever grown in business is because people have been kind of mean with me. Right? They've told me very honestly, like, I don't think that you have a business model here. You can't get that return.
Okay.
And I'm so glad people told me that, because then I realized, shit,
Okay.
I don't have a business.
Yeah, that's true.
How do I get better?
I was also thinking, like, what is a serial founder? Like,
A serial founder, someone who just can't stop trying businesses.
and they do like sequentially, or they do like they start like on the same time, at the same time.
No, it's usually one after the other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm imagining like what if I have like a lot of ideas, what do I have with those ideas?
Yeah, you just have to focus on one and try it for a few months to a year and see if you get traction. And if you don't, then you stop and you go into the other. Yeah.
That was more of my personal question
Yeah.
than my thesis question.
No, it's good. It's
Yeah.
like, for instance, when I was traveling around, I used to always be in B2C businesses, right? So I always did B2C, and they take a lot of marketing, they take a lot of awareness, it takes a lot of time for people to adopt. So as I was just like traveling and came to Amsterdam, I traveled for 4 months, I decided to start like a Shopify e-commerce store, because I'd never done that. So I just started it for fun and started drop shipping. Because I was also wanting something to do. I couldn't just travel and go to museums, although I loved it. I needed something to do. But that taught me a lot, because I realized B2C is not what I want to do. It's so much hard work. I would rather be the person.
That's one of the things that one of my colleagues told me as well. He said, like, not sure which accelerator he works at, but he also told me, like, usually we focus much more on B2B business,
Because they can be profitable from day one.
and also like even if they are B2C, we really like their idea, we will try to reshape them into B2B.
Yeah.
And he also because he told me, like, customers, they are variable and they have like their likes, and
Yes.
they can be more volatile. Whereas business, they want to have profit, so if they are your customers, both of you have the same goal of
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Let someone else deal with the customers.
Yeah.
Deal just with your clients. Like, I have a friend, he actually is in Hilversum, and he's Iranian, and he wanted to potentially sell, because Persian rugs are very expensive, right? He's like, well, I want to sell Persian rugs. And I'm like, well, don't do that. I'm like, buy Persian rugs for a cheap rate, and then upsell them and upmark them to some retailers around here that will sell them for you. Because you don't want to worry. So, yeah.
True.
It's much better to be B2B. You can be profitable very quickly.
Okay. And is it, I'm thinking, besides the team, the team and the people, is there any other things that you would consider like key of a successful startup? Like in terms, for example, one of the things that they told me, like, about the organizational culture, that these kind of things, or B2B, B2C is another example of something that is not part of the team.
I think the biggest thing that sticks out when people are like, oh, I really love this team, or I really want to invest, it's because the founders typically have like a humbleness, and a quality of wanting to learn, or and not in a fake way, but really they listen more than they talk usually, and they ask good questions, and they're usually people who are genuinely wanting to learn something from the whole process. And investors, especially in the VC world, investors don't just want to give their money. Like, they do that, but they also want to know, how can we best support you? Like, we want to give to you as well in other ways, not just monetarily. They want to know, can I connect you with my network? How can I actually help this business go further?
Yeah.
So I think it always becomes, they always say the best like mentor-mentee relationships go both ways too, right? So,
yeah, definitely, because I think no one knows it all. So.
Exactly.
Even if, probably what the founders are worried is that they get like bossed to do everything as the investor wants or the mentor wants.
Yeah.
But it's like the best relationship. It's both ways.
Exactly. Yeah. It's true. Like the ones that I'm advising now, they are so. Like, he's the one that I said is going to be the president of the U.S. But I actually feel so grateful to him for giving me the opportunity to be on his advising board, right? Because I just know that they're going to do really cool stuff, and I really trust and believe in their idea. So I'm actually probably more grateful to be on their board than they are for me. You know what well, maybe not, but you know what I mean. I'm very excited for the opportunity because I think that they're gonna go far. So
I think that covers most of my questions. I think that covers most of my questions.
Oh, good. Yeah. Was that helpful at all?
Definitely, yeah. I also learned a lot of things for my personal things.
Yeah, I could talk a lot about it.